and gentlemen, let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Brought to you by Guaranteed Foods, official sponsor of Family Mealtime. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, a Wednesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Briscoe, Dylan Michaels. We get up until 2 o'clock and we talk about such things as which team has a bigger target on their backs this year, defending champion Chiefs or the Jets. It's on NFL Network right now, Good Morning Football, which I do really like. That seems so much like a first take conversation, not a Good Morning Football. Typically, they are pretty good when it comes to like the topics there, but which team has a bigger target on their backs this year, defending champion Chiefs or the much-hyped Jets?
Well, I mean, if you don't like that, you could flip over to First Take and you could answer for yourself. Who's the bigger culprit in the Cowboys' lack of success, Jerry Jones or Dak Prescott?
Yes.
Woo!
That's my answer. Put Trey Lance in. If you want to win, put Lance in.
Or you could hang out with us for the next 4 hours, and we'll probably mostly talk about the minutiae of the Chiefs roster cuts, because that sounds a lot more fun to me, because we're sick people.
Compared to the Jets, mainly.
Yes. Whose roster cut downs will do more to determine their future, the Chiefs or the Jets?
913-912-4810 is the text line to join us. 913-912-4810, the text line to be a part of the show, part of the conversation. Coming up at 11 o'clock, we will talk with Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. We'll get his thoughts on the crazy, what has been, 20 hours or so, 16 hours, or, well, pretty much 24 hours, because a lot of news coming down yesterday and even before cut down day. I mean, the Chiefs made a trade before the final 53-man roster had to be finalized. We heard other names before that 3 o'clock deadline. So it's been a crazy whirlwind over the last couple of days in the NFL. So we'll talk with Brad Spielberger about some of those things, players that got cut, the non-report roster exemption for Chris Jones, and the salary cap implications for Chris Jones and the Chiefs with him being on the non-report exempt list. To try to get some clarification on that from Brad Spielberger, who does a great job covering contracts and NFL salary cap. He does all of those things. And we'll talk about what at least initial reports and things like that, like what Matt Derrick wrote, which is an interesting added information to this next stage of Chris Jones and his holdout, which is, as we've talked about on Monday and we talked about yesterday, that once he did not show up yesterday, he is ineligible for the non-report exempt list, which means the Chiefs do not have to pay his salary, which would mean the Chiefs are only on the hook for the guaranteed portion of that his Paragraph 5 salary, which Paragraph 5 CBA salary is just ridiculous terms. Just say his base salary. Why don't you just say that?
Paragraph 5 salary makes it sound like a legal thing.
Yes, his base salary is what would count towards the Chiefs this year without some of those prorations and things like that. So technically right now the Chiefs have like a $7 or $8 million cap hit for Chris Jones, which would allow them to go and sign some players. 8.3, I think, is the number. 8.3 salary cap hit right now for Chris Jones, which then they could go out and sign some players if they want to. Say a Carlos Dunlap or a Melvin Ingram, something like that. They could also bring their players on the practice squad because if Chris Jones had reported and they did not put him on the non-roster, non-report exempt list, then the Chiefs would not have had enough money to sign practice squad players. But now they do. But when Chris Jones reports and they take him off the exempt, that's the thing. Mm-hmm. He can report and he can still be on the list. So when the Chiefs take him off the list, they're going to have to be in compliance with the NFL and their salary cap. So they can go out and spend money if they want to. They can go and spend $8 million or whatever on practice squad players and trades and free agents and vested veterans and whatever they want to do to continue to move around and create this final 53-man roster that will be ready next Thursday. So that would be the first official 53-man roster because there's so many moving parts.
Yes.
What it is on Thursday morning, to me, is really the official 53-man roster that the Chiefs will start the season with, because today, as of 3 o'clock, is the IR designated to return list that'll start coming out. Is that L'Jarius Sneed? Is it Kadarius Toney? Is it Nick Allegretti? Is it Matt Dickerson? These are all names that could go on the IR designated to return because the Chiefs kept 5 defensive tackles, none of them named Chris Jones.
Yep.
That's one of the surprises because the Chiefs have only typically kept 4 defensive tackles with Chris Jones. Mm-hmm. They kept 5 without Chris Jones. Now, I'm not saying they would typically, then they would have kept 6, but when Chris Jones returns, are they going to keep 5 defensive tackles? Are 2 players going to go bye-bye? Like, what happens at that point? Dickerson seems to be the guy that, if Chris Jones is on the team, would then move out of the way, since it was Turk, Daniel Wise, and Matt Dickerson that were filling in that 3-technique Chris Jones spot. So they've kept 5 defensive tackles, 3 of which are nose tackles, 1 of which is coming off an ACL, 1 of which the Raiders didn't think was good enough for their team. The other is dealing with a turf toe right now in Matt Dickerson. So, no bueno. There's some problems right now at the defensive tackle spot for the Chiefs, and defensive end, they have no Charles Omenihu. They only have 5 defensive ends. Typically, they keep 6 around there. So there are some roster implications. There are some things that we'll talk about, surprises, reactions, and those things. But just some of the housekeeping, fine details. 11 a.m. is when the waivers are over. So you have till 11 a.m. to put a waiver claim in on a player. So we will start hearing some names that players or teams have claimed off waivers, and then you can start signing practice squad players, because then the waivers would have been put in for players. And players that go through the waivers can then be eligible for practice squad, signing with any team, whatever. So 11 o'clock, less than an hour from now, is when all of those things where we may hear, did Shane Buechele get picked up off waivers? Did the Chiefs claim anybody off waivers? There are some surprise cuts that took place yesterday. Not some big names where it's like, oh my God, the Colts cut Jonathan Taylor. What in the hell happened there? But one name out of Indianapolis, which I think is pretty interesting. Also great news for Julius Brents, that K-State cornerback Julius Brents was, drafted in the second round. But the Colts cut a 5th-round cornerback, a guy that Dane Brugler had as a 2nd-round grade. Now, they drafted 2 other cornerbacks, I believe. They had like 13 draft picks.
They took a ton of corners, too.
So they threw numbers at it. And they are terrible at cornerback spot, which we already talked about with Julius Brents anyway. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they cut a 5th-rounder and the only cornerback they drafted ahead of him was Julius Brents seems to be great news for him. He clearly made the roster and all that stuff. But that's a player that's really interesting. His name popped up, and I was like, whoa, that guy's 6'2", 200, runs a 4.3, and has 34-inch arms. If that ain't Spags corner written all over it, I don't know what is. Now, the Chiefs could have drafted him at any point. He went in the 5th round, so they did not draft him. And they traded up for Shamari Connor, who was a safety, hybrid-type player, could, be a slot. But Darius Rush is a guy that's an outside corner. And so that's just one name. Like, we'll see. I believe he'll be claimed off waivers. I don't think he'll make it to 32
Probably not.
For the Chiefs in the waiver claim, a 5th-rounder that I bet a lot of teams were like, I know he's dealt with some injuries there in Indianapolis, but he's healthy now. He just had an interception, but I do have to check this because Indianapolis cornerbacks suck that are returning. They've got plenty of open spots, and they cut this guy. There's always those surprises that are out there.
When we ended the show, Alberto is going to be a free agent.
That's
right.
right.
He's going to hit waivers.
That's exactly right.
And now he's an Eagle. So that's not going to happen. They traded a pick for him.
They traded, it was Alberto and a 7th-rounder for a 6th-rounder for the Eagles is what they got. He better not step on Dallas Goedert's toes or any of the Nothing to do with fantasy. Just I really like Dallas Goedert.
He's a big Dallas Goedert fan. That's fine. I just thought you were going to say better not set foot on any slippery grass because now he's going to be.
Well, yes.
That's a kryptonite now.
Certainly that. He's going to some place that apparently they wear turf shoes when it comes to regular grass or whatever. So there's so many things to talk about with this and things to get into and just general takeaways. And the Royals officially have an ace. Those are all things that we will certainly get into.
So nice last night to see Cole Ragans be an ace, and then I'm sure lock down that win. I of course, don't watch once the bullpen begins pitching, but I mean, you can't let a starter down in a moment like that. So we'll talk about the Royals' big win last night with Jeff Montgomery at noon.
Yeah, it was the Pirates. Ragans goes 7 innings, no earned runs,
45 strikeouts,
9 strikeouts.
Whatever.
Thank you. We told you guys.
That might be our best betting advice this show's ever given.
We said yesterday that over-under on Cole Ragans strikeouts was 6.5. Vegas doesn't typically give away money, but that seems like because Greinke and Hunter Dickinson on Monday had like 6 strikeouts between the two. Like, those aren't guys that get Ks.
I put 10.
What?
I put 10 Kent Swanson units on that Cole Ragans over.
Wow.
I think that was 5 Jason Anderson units.
I put 5.
So you put 2.5. What's your?
But
Kent's $1 better.
But I also used the boost
on
from the
DraftKings.
50% MLB boost. So it was more than just your. Plus, it was minus 105. Like it wasn't even the juice was on the under. Like what the hell are you doing?
Plus 140 or
so
something.
Dumb. Just go there. They're giving away money, people.
Yeah.
So next Cole Ragans start, I'd keep an eye on that as to what see if it adjusts with that. But the Royals have an ace. And so we'll talk about that with Jeff Montgomery coming up at noon. Mick Schaefer will join us at 1 o'clock, KSHB 41 Sports Director, and we will go on record with what we think the local schools' records will be. We'll go on record with their records, what we think K-State will end up, wins, losses, KU, Mizzou, as college football gets underway tomorrow with Missouri taking on South Dakota, and then on Friday, KU, Missouri State, and on Saturday, K-State, Southeast, Missouri State. So we'll do that with Mick Schaefer coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us.
I just briefly was alarmed by seeing waiver claim news. I'm like, wait a second, that should be an hour out. How are we getting waiver claim news? Well, when the Bears claim you, you don't have to wait for anybody else to make that claim, I suppose. They've claimed a couple guys, nobody that I have heard of or that is relevant to the Chiefs, but we might start seeing some of those really early trickle in.
Yeah.
I think, by the contrary, we might not hear any Chiefs waiver claims until 11:30, because I don't know exactly how this will all leak out, but a couple Bears claims have begun. Not Shane Buechele yet. We'll keep an eye on it.
Okay. That is something to keep an eye on, okay, is Shane Buechele, because boy, what a conversation the last few weeks have been about Buechele or Gabbert. Buechele or Gabbert. Buechele and Gabbert. What would they do? Was that the biggest surprise for you yesterday? Or were there other, or was it a surprise? I'll say a couple things. Was it a surprise? If it was it the biggest surprise? And if not, what was the biggest surprise? There you go. 3.
It was a surprise for me, certainly. I think it was the second biggest surprise.
Ooh.
Because even as I had largely soured on Darian Kennard, I didn't think the Chiefs had.
That's a great one.
And Lucas Niang, Prince Tega Winogo, Mike Caliendo all make the roster. That's 2 tackles and a guard. I lump those tackles together, and Caliendo can play inside also, or can play a little center also. So while Nick Allegretti is banged up or whatever that situation is, they're going to get Ryder to the practice squad, it seems. But that is a little more surprising to me and interesting to see how that shook out. But I definitely was surprised that Buechele was a cut.
So you could say that Caliendo made a big impression on the Chiefs? You could say that. I wouldn't say it, but you could say that.
What if you said it? What if Charles Barkley said that? Caliendo over Kennard. And the implication with not just that, but they kept 10 offensive linemen, and Kennard wasn't one of them. Yeah.
Because there was a lot of projected 53-man rosters that had 9 offensive linemen. Some had 10. Was it Matt Derrick or Nick Jacobs had 10?
One of them had 10.
One of them had 10. Yeah. One of them had 9. But that's typically where it's been at. I haven't seen anybody with 8.
Nobody had 8.
So 9 or 10. And if it was 10, there was going to be some roster crunches at different places. Well, Pirine didn't make the team, which felt like he was going to make the team. He was on my 53-man roster yesterday.
You can have your victory lap on quarterbacks. My victory lap is going to be on running backs, receivers, tight ends. I'll wait.
Okay, great. I'll wait.
I'll wait.
Oh, yeah? Why don't you tell me when's the last time that happened with this? Why don't you find me that? I'll wait.
Oh, wait. I was like, well, yes.
I'll wait. Thanks, pretentious ass. Oh, wait.
Sorry. No, that is one of my least favorite ways to sign off a tweet.
But you were actually saying, no, I'll wait.
I'll literally wait because that's not the most important thing, but there's
Right.
something interesting. Some fun numbers games.
With Caliendo, Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, and Joe Tooney being kept as the guard-to-guard, with Donovan Smith, Jawan Taylor, Wanya Morris, Prince Tega Winogo, and Lucas Niang as the tackles. Is that an indication to you that they're not going to put Allegretti on the IR designated to return, that the injury isn't as serious because he's the backup center? If they would have kept Austin Wright, now maybe they think Austin Ryder's not going to be claimed, we'll put him on the practice squad. If Allegretti has to go on IR, we can activate Ryder if we need that. But in game,
I think it could be Caliendo in game. That's the other little advantage that I think he has.
Caliendo,
is that he can play a little bit of of center.
I'm sorry. Did he play?
I think
he have some
did
snaps?
play at center.
Because you know what?
In the third game,
I saw Ryder at left guard, and that's all I was paying attention to was how bad he was at
I
left
missed
guard.
that actually. I didn't.
Yeah,
even
so did
catch
he with
that.
blocks.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, you were able to hold on to that memory, and at least he didn't get penalized for it. But I think that might be a little bit part of it.
You have to touch the guy to hold him.
To actually hold him. Yeah, you have to have some leverage there.
Let's just say I don't want the injury to be serious for Allegretti because I don't want Ryder being on the offensive line when Patrick Mahomes has to take a snap in a game.
Yeah. And you could, like you said, you could elevate Ryder from the practice squad your first two games of the year if you want.
Yeah.
But you've got to have a plan beyond that. And is he a vested vet? I don't think he has to go through.
No, he's
definitely
a vested vet.
He's been.
So I shouldn't say.
I
shouldn't say if he passes waivers.
If
so
anybody else wants to give him a
years.
better offer, essentially.
Yeah. If anybody wants to put him on their 53, then hey, that's fine.
Go for it. Sure.
He's got experience with the Chiefs. He knows the playbook.
That feels like a slam dunk.
He's got a relationship with Patrick Mahomes. If nobody signs him and he's going to be on a practice squad, I would be shocked if it wasn't the Chiefs practice squad. But I thought that was interesting as Allegretti has been the first backup center for this team.
Absolutely.
And when they don't keep a Ryder or maybe that's maybe that's the indication Caliendo over Kennard. Maybe that's what it is that Caliendo over Kennard might be the indication that Allegretti may go on the IR designated return, because if it was Kennard over Caliendo, Allegretti would be the backup center in game, active on game day.
And not to, have to go through all of our game day activation conversations anymore. But you're going to have healthy scratches week 1 and week 2 anyway. If they look at Nick Allegretti and say, it's a week or two, but it's not 4 weeks, well, he could be one of your quote-unquote healthy scratches as an unhealthy scratch, where you just say, hey, you're inactive this first week or two, then you can go ahead and have Ryder up as a practice squad elevation, and you have your depth there. Or you just say, hey, if Creed Humphrey goes down, Caliendo's got us for 2 or 3 quarters. We can live with that. I'm not sure, but I do think that numbers thing becomes really interesting. And Caliendo having a little more versatility than Kennard helps in that final ruling. I'm surprised they found a spot for both Prince and Niang. I thought that was going to be a crunch.
Totally agree with that. You waited. Now you get to your point.
I told you a couple days ago, I was looking at 13 flex positions for the Chiefs.
In fantasy football.
Well, also that. But think about flex positions in the fantasy terms, and you can include tight ends in the modern era now. And I'm including fullbacks because the Chiefs have had one every year under Andy Reid until now. I thought that we were looking at some of those. Joseph Hefner had that great infographic we've referred to a couple of times on Twitter. And what I thought the sweet spot was going to be for running backs plus receivers plus tight ends plus fullbacks was 13. That's pretty much where they've settled in over the last several years. But that's 1 fullback, oftentimes 4 running backs. So I liked the idea of saying, hey, look, teams I think Matt said this, teams overvalue their own running backs because they're the guys you have in camp, the guys you have in practice you see every day. Prince and Pirine should make it to the practice squad. Hopefully both of them do. And now you get down to 13 because you only have the 3 tight ends, no Matt Bushman. You only have the 3 running backs, Pacheco, Clyde, and McKinnon. You have your 7 receivers, which is where that math changes. And you're still at 13, air quotes, skill position guys. Now, I would have said 16, including the quarterbacks. That would have been fine. They got to 15, including the quarterbacks, at least for now. And that is also fascinating to me. But 13 flex positions, cutting both running backs, was not a surprise to this guy with 2 thumbs pointing at him. But I was surprised by the quarterbacks, which probably led to, I don't know what, champagne bottles in the Anderson house?
No.
Sparkling juice?
It's funny. I got a couple of tweets and people reaching out yesterday when they cut Shane Buechele. And my reaction was, I'm not going to do a victory lap over a guy losing his job. Like, no matter what the argument is, it sucks that he seems like a good dude. So I'm not going to be like, hell yeah, Shane Buechele got cut. No, it's just the discussion that we were having is a matter of how important is the 53rd roster spot for you that may or may not be active on game day. I was surprised the Chiefs cut Buechele. I was even more surprised that only 13 NFL teams kept 3 quarterbacks.
One has one right now.
Yeah.
The Patriots have one.
Mac Jones. Well, you know what they say, if you have 2, you don't have 1.
I guess that's what it is.
Bill Belichick's like, bleep this, I only needed 1 my entire career. Why do I need more than 1?
I need 2 now. He's got Mac Jones and then Matt Castle on the practice squad.
That's only because Matt Castle was there as a reporter, sort of helping out for the NFL Network.
Yeah.
He was just there to interview him, and he was like, do you want to take some snaps? You look like you can still throw the ball
I
around.
bet he could still sling it.
It's like, I bet you could still throw it the exact same way you did 13 years ago. I bet you're still the same. But Bailey Zappi was really a surprise because he won 2 games for him last year.
Good.
He was like he was the story of quarterbacks midseason, and then he got set aside from Mac Jones, and then Brock Purdy was like, what about me? And then he stepped up as the quarterback, only he's now the starter in San Francisco, and Bailey Zappi, I would guess, would be claimed off waivers by somebody or not. I don't know, because, again, you've got 13 teams that are already keeping 3 quarterbacks. So now you're talking about 19 teams that would have 2, take away the Patriots, so 18 teams that would have 2 quarterbacks that would want Bailey Zappi over somebody on their roster or somebody that was on their roster as a quarterback that they decided to waive, cut, release, that now Bailey Zappi would be better than coming in to be that. Like, I doubt the Chiefs would go Bailey Zappi over Shane Buechele when you've got a different offense and they've had Shane Buechele around for 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes to Thanksgiving with them.
That's the thing that I'm wondering about in terms of, like, we never talked about it on this show, I don't think, but Jeremy Fowler had that report a few days ago that the Chiefs had been in contact with Carson Wentz for a while.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make everybody Carson Wentz, but I squinted and got a little small. My shoulders ran up to my ears. And part of me also would be like, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, how perfect would it be? Like, hey, Andy Reid, come on in and take this quarterback who had a 12-week stretch of looking like an MVP and then just literally physically fell apart. I don't know. I could see the Chiefs still wanting to have a quarterback who runs stuff for them that they like. I mean, and I think Matt Derrick's point about the scout team, you've got to have you physically have to have a third quarterback somewhere in your building to run scout team stuff. Blaine Gabbert's not running the scout team, right? But if Chris Oladipo or Buechele, whoever, makes it the practice squad, they can be that guy from the practice squad. That's kind of the name of the game, literally, there is the practice squad.
It means you can practice, right?
It means you can practice and maybe help the ones practice. But I don't know I honest to God don't know what the plan is now. My other small victory lap, as I also said, the Kevin Kolb procedure was in place for Shane Buechele, and that is clearly, what wouldn't they have taken for Shane Buechele? Because even if that third game was a legit tryout for him, a legitimate opportunity for him to make this roster, which I think it probably was, as soon as you saw the air leaking out of that life raft, it was, yeah, not only is the trade market getting a little flimsy for this guy, so is that roster spot. And so they tried. They made him the starter, kept putting him at the podium. Does any team out there see their future starting quarterback at this podium? What if you really look at it, Eric Bieniemy? What do you think? No? Arizona? Okay, never mind.
We'll take a timeout. A couple of other things, to that point. Jalen Reagor, the Vikings released to some of their reporters. Ian Rappaport put out and said, teams are inquiring about Jalen Reagor. And everybody's like, who the hell is calling about Jalen Reagor? That's one of those, hey, Ian, we're getting some calls about Jalen Reagor. Yeah. Oh, really? You're getting called? Okay, hey, people are calling about Jalen Reagor. Then they cut him.
Yeah.
Nobody was calling about Jalen Reagor. Hey, Jalen, are you going to cut him? That's what we're calling about.
Yes.
Well, we could trade him to you. No, I don't want to trade him. I'm just asking if you're going to cut him. That's all. Just looking at different things, So he was cut after a report yesterday that teams are trying to trade for Jalen Reagor. Okay, sure. We've got these extra footballs here. We'll trade for Jalen Reagor. Ooh, we wanted 5 footballs. We ain't giving up 5 footballs for him. We give you 4.
We've seen kickers get traded for more than backup receivers and backup quarterbacks this offseason. I mean, just this last couple of days. More kicker action.
Yeah. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. We'll get into some of the Chris Jones stuff. We will talk about some third quarterback things with the Chiefs. 5 defensive tackles for the Chiefs. 6 linebackers.
6 linebackers.
Chiefs, are they going 3-4?
6 linebackers.
Is that Dave Tope stepping in and saying, "Hey, Brett, keep this guy or I quit"? I doubt that.
6 linebackers?
But you never know. Where's the next?
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Josh Briscoe, Dylan Michaels. We'll talk with Brad Spielberger coming up at 11 o'clock. Jeff Montgomery at noon. Mick Schaefer, 1 o'clock. And Sarim Petro in the program comes your way at 2. Best of at 6 o'clock. Night shift with Jack Johnson tonight at 7 o'clock. And at 11 o'clock, we will start seeing some of the names in the waiver claims because that will be the deadline to place waiver claims on different players. Some names are coming in with, the Bears with waiver claims and having the worst record and so on and so forth. It does not work like your fantasy football league to where, well, I haven't placed a waiver claim in 3 weeks, so I get the first one. No, every single player goes by waiver claim with 1 through 32 based on record. So if the Chiefs want a player, they would be the 32nd team to try to get that player off waivers. 31 teams would have to pass on that player to claim them off waivers. There's your tax for winning the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Darn it, you don't get to grab players that have been cut by lesser teams.
And if you are the Chiefs, I mean, you might have somebody that a change of scenery. They just did this with Farrell yesterday, right?
Yeah.
With the Raiders and everything. But you've got to have 31 teams in front of you say, no, I'm not interested in this guy's services. And then you, with theoretically the best roster in football, or at least the reigning championship roster in football, have to go, you know what? We do want that guy. Coaching and analysis and evaluation can make for some of those opportunities, but I don't know.
That would be one incredible needle to thread.
Yes.
That would be one of the smallest needles to thread to get there, where the Chiefs want a specific player at a position with a roster that's really good and 31 other teams with lesser rosters, or, at least 28 other teams, 29 other teams with lesser rosters said, no, we don't want that particular player. So I doubt there will be any waiver claims by the Chiefs because also those guys would have to go on their 53. Today for the Chiefs is really the practice squad players can start being signed at 11 o'clock. And as of 3 o'clock is the placed on IR designated to return. I think there are 4 players in discussion with that for the Chiefs. L'Jarius Sneed, Kadarius Toney, Nick Allegretti, and Matt Dickerson. 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. Any of them are possibilities to go on or not. That L'Jarius Sneed might be ready to go, that they held him out of practice just because they didn't feel like he needed to practice and be out there, but he'll be ready to go against the Lions. Kadarius Toney, there's been talk about whether or not he's going to be ready next week. Allegretti, they're hoping the injury wasn't that serious, but they also kept Caliendo on the roster over Kennard, and Caliendo took some snaps at center once we talked through my brain eliminating that. And Matt Dickerson was kept as a defensive tackle, and they've kept 5 defensive tackles, none of them named Chris Jones. And Dickerson's dealing with a turf toe right now. But is he somebody that you would want on your roster to where you would use one of your 8 IR designated to returns on a Matt Dickerson, who may not be on the roster anyway when Chris Jones reports, because you'd have Turk and Jones, and
that's kind of it.
That would be it.
That's kind of it.
It'd be Turk and Jones.
Yeah, because Noddy, Coburn, Farrell are all a similar type.
Because Daniel Wise is not on the roster.
Daniel Wise didn't make it.
So Daniel Wise, Turk, and Matt Dickerson were the ones filling in for Chris Jones at that spot. So that's an interesting one. And then 6 linebackers that the Chiefs kept, one of those being Cam Jones, which to me has Dave Toub written all over it. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's more context with Deion Bush being released. Maybe there's more context as to why he played 50 snaps in the game in preseason game number 3 when you felt like, well, he's a part of the team.
That did
certainly.
That was a little flare for sure.
Out there for the whole game. Were they just simply letting him play so other teams could watch and then claim him off waiver or sign him? He's a vested veteran. He might be a guy that they cut as a vested veteran to bring back, because he and Danny Shelton would be guys that were released that might be players, vested veterans brought back. But again, I'm not sure Danny Shelton would be that guy, because they could have just kept Danny Shelton on their team and not kept a Matt Dickerson or something like that. Deion Bush maybe could be a guy like that. Blake Bell was not. There was a thought that Blake Bell would be released and then brought back because they can clear an extra roster spot. Mm-hmm. That was not the case. Shane Buechele released by the Chiefs, and Blaine Gabbert kept. I think it goes to a continuing trend that I don't know when it'll change or if it ever will change with Andy Reid, of the preference for veterans guys that have been in the league for a while, guys that have been through the fire a while, to back up his number one quarterback. That is excluding Patrick Mahomes, who was the backup for a year behind Alex Smith. But guys who have sort of been there, done that, whether they've succeeded at a high level and then they're just on the back end, or they have had some success, or they've been really good guys that can fill in, smart guys in the locker room and game planning and things like that. We know Chad Henne for a while. Then they went and got Matt Moore when Chad Henne went out in preseason, and then Blaine Gabbert this year. I don't know when it'll change, but when we talked about Bichelle and Gabbert, the reason people were talking about Bichelle was keeping him as a third quarterback. Not necessarily Bichelle over Gabbert, keeping him as the second quarterback. And they went with the veteran, yet again. I don't know that changes anytime soon with the Chiefs, but I do think it's something to keep in mind in the next couple of years, 3 years, if there's a younger guy, even if they bring back Shane Bichelle, if there's a younger guy and there's a veteran that's the backup quarterback, to look at what history has said, and that is Andy Reid and the Chiefs want somebody who they feel like has been there, done that experience, that when he's thrown into the game, it's not going to be too fast for him. It's not going to be that overwhelming.
I think that right there is really the touch point, because also if you're Andy Reid, it's partially a guy that you think is going to know where he needs to go with the football, that knows what he's surveying. But also, I think Andy Reid likes having a guy who he can have a pretty good idea of how that quarterback is going to act once he has let him loose.
Yeah.
Shane Bichelle has a little bit of crazy eye energy that occasionally shows up in the backfield, right? Like, we've seen that. The other thing with Gabbert, and again, like, I don't want to always just be like, keep the old guy, but with Gabbert, we've talked a little bit about like the cadence stuff, and Juwan Taylor having his worst rep as a Chief on a rep with Shane Bichelle, where Taylor was way later out of his pass block's first step, which is usually immaculate.
Yeah, Taylor has got that thing down.
Perfected with Patrick Mahomes, at least,
yeah.
And a little bit with Blaine Gabbert. But I think Seth Kaiser made this point. Like, that it didn't get better from game 1 to game 3 with Bichelle back there. That there was always still, like, the cadence wasn't quite lined up. You felt like you knew that Gabbert knew where the ball was supposed to go, that you knew that he was reading things correctly, even if he wasn't going to have the most dynamic answer to that. If I'm hunting for a starting quarterback, give me dynamicism, give me a guy who has little crazy eyes. Bring me all of that and let Andy Reid refine a superstar. If you need somebody to play 3 drives or 3 games for this Chiefs team, again, the third quarterback conversation notwithstanding, we all think the Chiefs are Super Bowl contenders. If they lose Patrick Mahomes for 8 games in the middle of the season, yeah, just keep our head above water, Blaine.
Can you go 4-4?
Go 4-4.
Do enough to where the Chiefs can get into the playoffs.
Win the AFC West again if you can do it. That'd be fun. And then get us to the playoffs, and Mahomes will be back. That's absolutely it. And I think it makes. I am more confident in that with Blaine Gabbert playing quarterback than I would be with Bichelle playing quarterback. So it's hard for me to rage against the higher-priced vet, because I understand the logic, honestly.
Who do you think is the player that took Bichelle's spot? That if they were going to keep 3 quarterbacks, this guy was cut. I do wonder if it's Lucas Niang or Prince Tega Winogo.
That's my hunch.
Over Shane Bichelle.
The 6 linebackers is weird. I need to figure out what happens with the linebackers first.
But that would be even 25 players on defense, 25 and 25. So if it's just offense, if they were looking at keeping 25 players on offense and just figuring out who those 25 players were going to be, what those positional group breakdowns were going to be.
Cam Jones might have Chris Jones's roster spot right now.
Well, that's only because he's Jones. You got to keep up.
Hey, you're right. C. Jones.
Keep up with the Joneses.
You got a C. Jones and a C. Jones. You have one spot for a C. Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that just for the sake of the game here. Cam Jones has Chris Jones' spot, because whenever Chris Jones comes back, you're not gonna. You don't want to cut Matt Dickerson right away, because you need someone who can take some of those 3 tech snaps, right? So let's make it one of those linebackers. In that case, I do think it's whichever tackle was closer to the edge of the bubble, which we don't know still. I'm inclined to believe that was Lucas Niang.
I'm inclined to think that too, only because Wanya Morris played right tackle so much in college, and if you're looking, and Lucas Niang has played so much right tackle for the Chiefs. If Donovan Smith went down, are you ready to put Wanya Morris over there, or a guy who you've had in your system for the last couple of years who plays left tackle?
Yeah.
And Prince Tega Winogo.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's right.
Taylor and Morris can play right tackle. So you would have 2 there that could play right tackle. You'd have 2 at left tackle, with Morris being a swing tackle, really could play right, left, all of that stuff. They could probably feel that about Lucas Niang, but again, it'd be a little redundant if Lucas Niang, who's a right tackle except for the game he played against the Bengals in which he tore his meniscus.
Yeah.
Filling in for Orlando Brown. That Taylor, Niang, and then Morris, a swing tackle, at who was predominantly more a right tackle.
Yeah, and then the future is cleared up if Wanya continues to have a nice rookie season, looks good in practice, whatever. You're figuring out your Donovan Smith stuff. You're figuring out your Lucas Niang stuff. You keep Prince around. Although, actually, is this a contract year for Prince also? It actually might be. I'll look at that, but I like the way that group ultimately shook out, which is a crazy place to be, considering where we're at this offseason when Donovan Smith wasn't in the mix, and even when he was in the mix, there was no assurance he was going to be good. This is a restricted free agent next year for Prince.
What'll be, I really want to know how many wide receivers they're going to keep, how many wide receivers they'll make active on game day. Because they typically keep 6 receivers, but oftentimes there's only 5 active receivers on game day. They keep 7. Does that mean they're going to have 6 active, or they're keeping 7 and still go with their traditional 5 active receivers? But that comes into sort of special teams and everything like that. Like the receivers at the end need to play special teams, need to be a part of that. Cam Jones is a big special teamer. Is Cam Jones on the team because Justin Ross is on the team and he's the 7th wide receiver and he doesn't play special teams?
Right.
So, we got to keep somebody that's definitely going to be a special teamer. Well, did they choose Cam Jones over Deion Bush, who's also a pretty good special teamer? Like, these are where late in the game, some of these positional and player-specific could be Dave Toub stepping in and going, no, Cam Jones is, he's a four-phase guy for me. I want Cam Jones to be there. He's fast. He's a linebacker. He can do a lot of different things for us. I want Cam Jones. Can we keep Cam Jones? Well, you're going to have to lose Deion Bush. Okay, I'm going to have to lose Deion Bush. But you know what? I got Shamari Connor, who I feel like can play that Deion Bush special teams role. And when Snead is in there, you don't need him to play that as much. So I got Connor to be Deion Bush, but I got Cam Jones to be, Marcus Kemp or Chris Lamons or something like that he's going to be out there doing those particular things.
And Spags comes barging in going, 6 linebackers? What the hell am I supposed to do with 6 linebackers? I got to build the defensive line. Where's Chris?
Bob was a previous defensive coordinator.
Sutton?
Yeah, Bob Sutton comes in and goes, 6 linebackers? Hell yeah.
6 linebackers? Can we double that?
Yeah, we're playing 3-4 around here.
A lot of energy for a Bob Sutton impression.
Sorry.
I also started too high. We got to bring it down.
I apologize. 6 linebackers.
6 linebackers. Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
It's right up my alley. It's kind of my speed.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah. So can we keep 7? 7 wide receivers? Can Justin Ross play linebacker? Let's give it a shot. 2-way player.
I'm currently bending and not breaking. Whoop, I broke.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and...
Other nuggets from around the league. Out of Indianapolis today, some of the reports coming in for teams that were trying to trade for Jonathan Taylor, who, by the way, has been kept on the PUP list, which means he will be out the first 4 weeks of the NFL season. If you've got him on your fantasy team, that's a tough blow because there was a chance he could have ended up in Miami. The Green Bay Packers were the mystery team that people were saying there's a mystery bidder there for Jonathan Taylor. Turns out it was the Green Bay Packers. And some of the details coming in as to what the Colts were asking for Jonathan Taylor. Specifically with Miami, the Indianapolis Colts from the Miami Dolphins wanted draft picks and Jalen Waddle.
Come on, I didn't see that.
Yes.
Oh, that's not real.
Jalen Waddle was going to have to be a part of the trade if they were sending Jonathan Taylor to the Dolphins. That was like a sticking point that we want Jalen Waddle. Well, I want to fly 50 feet in the air without a plane. I just want to. I want to dunk on a 25-foot goal. Like it's like I want to be Peter Pan. You know, it's time to grow up. All right.
I really love my Chromebook, but if anyone wants to trade me a Ferrari and a MacBook Pro, I would take it. I guess. Cover the taxes and stuff too, please.
There is an element of this to where it's like,
hell, are we doing?
The Colts were saying we don't want to trade Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. You can go and find a trade partner. We don't want to trade you. And it's like, hey, I want to buy your house. Well, it's not for sale. Yeah, but what do you want for it? $1 million? Whoa, it's like you're not even serious about this. Yeah, I know. I said I didn't want to sell my house. That if you're going to blow me away with an offer, then I'll sell my house. But I'm not interested in selling. I mean, let's just be serious about this, okay? It's like you're not even trying to negotiate seriously with me. I know. I don't want to sell.
I think I don't even know which side you're madder at here because I feel that way to both sides of like they're both doing that.
Yeah, right.
It's like, hey, Jonathan Taylor, go ahead, go find your other. Okay, so they went through all their work to try to figure out if they could find a trade partner, couldn't find anything. We get back to the Colts, like, well, we're not going to pay you either. We don't want to trade you. We don't want to pay you. We don't really want you here. We're worried about what's that? Is that a back thing? We can put you on the PUP list. And by the way, me, the owner, I'll tweet through it. Like it's one of the most mismanaged contract disputes in modern NFL history.
The asking price has Royals written all over it. Well, we actually want your number one prospect for Whit Merrifield. Our what for what? Well, yeah, if you want Whit Merrifield, we're not going to trade him if you want. Well, no, we're interested. It's just we're not going to do that. Well, I guess you're not interested in trading for him then. If you don't want to throw your number one prospect and Jalen Waddle.
How would you like to be saving up to 70% on your utility bills this month? Hi, this is Gio Julie with ECS.
The Zone is brought to you by Guaranteed Foods, official sponsor of Family Mealtime. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. We will hear from Brett Veach at some point today on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Right about now is when the deadline for waiver claims, and so we'll probably hear some more news coming up over the next hour or so. Reminder, 3 o'clock this afternoon is when teams can start placing players on the IR designated to return. Chiefs may have a couple of those players. We'll see. Or the deadline to do that, I should say. Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus, is our guest here in the Zone. Brad, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, doing well. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. What are the last 24 hours like for you, from Tuesday morning to Wednesday, maybe afternoon, when there's cuts, there's waivers, then there's waiver claims, there's trades. There's so much movement from player 47 to 53 on 32 NFL rosters.
Yeah, it's a bit of a whirlwind, no question about it. I'm getting a lot of questions from guys that I think know their clients might be on the way out in a certain building, but feel they're good enough to play elsewhere. Hey, is this roster going to need some players? Is this roster looking for a special teamer or a number 6 corner, number 4 running back, et cetera, et cetera? So it's a little bit of mayhem, but the dust has settled so far. Obviously more movement on the way as rosters shake out, as waiver claims go in, but we made it through.
Is there one or two players that may be a surprise for you across the league? I know that the Chiefs had a couple, but I don't think they really make waves in the league with Deion Bush being released. Shane Buechele was released. A lot of people thought the third quarterback would stay on the Chiefs, but any players bigger names that you're like, okay, that's interesting. That'll be somebody out there, either a waiver or a vested veteran, something like that.
Yeah, I think there were a couple surprises, but really nothing too crazy. The biggest one may have been at the end of the day with Bailey Zappi, of course, the Patriots backup quarterback, their 4th-round pick last year, who went 2-0 in starts, averaged over 9 yards per attempt in those games. But I think it goes back to, Bill Belichick being Bill Belichick, where Zappi in last year and in this preseason kept fumbling the football, really did not have a good feel for his pocket and was very loose with the football, turning it over. That is how you get kicked off the New England Patriots, clearly. So that is interesting, though, because he did look good last year. They have no other quarterbacks on the roster right now besides Mac Jones. And then one veteran is Bradley Roby from New Orleans Saints. Not a shocker again. I think Alontae Taylor, the 2nd-round pick from last year, is a good slot corner that will probably be more productive this season than Roby, but a guy that can play outside, can play inside. I think he will land on a roster in the near future.
How do you view teams that release some draft picks, whether that be 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders, depending on how many draft picks you have, depending on how many spots you had on your team, makes it a little more difficult. But is in your mind, is it a GM willing to say, okay, we made a mistake on this, we're not going to continue to make that mistake by keeping this player on the roster? Or do you look at the draft and say, wow, I mean, that was clearly a mistake? And so I guess just how do you view that when, Darius Rush comes to mind, because that was a player that, we had looked at if the Chiefs were going to take some more cornerbacks, which they did, that he was a player that, had a great Senior Bowl, but he was released by the Colts, someone who's got a relationship with the Chiefs. So players like that, like when a team releases that, what does that say to you?
Yeah, it's funny. That's exactly where my mind went when you brought up the topic. I do think for 6th and 7th round picks, I think nothing of it. It's hard to make an NFL roster. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find, talent outside of the first 5 rounds. But, 4th and 5th, we get a couple 4ths every once in a while. I'm thinking back to Dez Fitzpatrick, the Titans, a couple of years ago. And then, Darius Rush, I think a very talented player. The team obviously also drafted Julius Brent and Jalen Jones in the 7th round, who looks to have kind of won the job over him. But I'm a Bears guy. I'm from Chicago. I think he's also a picture-perfect fit for Matt Eberflus's defense, and it's so interesting in that regard. It sounds like a tough camp, though. You go and look at, trusted, solid Colts reporters. They've all kind of said he didn't look too good. So maybe a change of scenery, a new location. Yeah, I don't hold it against teams. Like you said, I think it is really, hey, admit your mistake. You're not going to leave a guy on the roster just because you drafted him. You're going to let the best players make the team. I think that is, the right way to go about it for the most part.
And I would also say, though, it's kind of like I'm a fan of throwing numbers at a position if you need help there, and sometimes cornerback can be that, and the Chiefs have certainly done that over the last couple of years of just throwing numbers at the cornerback position with Josh Williams, Jalen Watson, Nazeed Johnson, Nick Jones, Trent McDuffie, obviously. So they've thrown numbers at that cornerback position over the last couple of years, and I think when you're talking about that in Indianapolis, it's a good point. They drafted a 7th rounder. They drafted Julius Brents from Kansas State. That, when you throw some numbers at it, you might have to make a decision that, look, we had this guy in the 7th round. He's better than what we thought he was going to be. There's been some injuries, so we got to make a move here. But that's sort of, the collateral damage of, I'm going to throw some numbers there. It doesn't mean that every single one of these guys is going to make the roster that I draft.
Right, exactly. I think it's a great point. And yeah, the Chiefs have been, doing that for a while now at both defensive back spots, safety and corner. Obviously, a couple more this year as well. You mentioned, Chamari Connor, et cetera. But I think the reason why it sticks out in Indy, I suppose, is that, with all due respect, their outside corners might be some of the worst in the NFL. So it's almost saying, wow, this guy couldn't even make the roster over these players.
Good
but again,
point,
you said, but then just bring in one guy. They brought in 3 or 4, and he happened to be the odd man out.
Visiting with Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. Obviously, a big talk around here has been the fact that Chris Jones still has not reported to camp. He was placed on the non-report exempt list. He does not go against the 53-man roster. His salary and does not get paid and doesn't go against the cap. For clarification sake, Brad, when if Chris Jones were to miss a week or two, it's like $1.15 million per week. And, salary cap relief, is that immediate or is that a rollover to where that's adjusted at the end of this year and goes on to 2024's cap if they don't pay Chris Jones for a week or two, depending on how long his holdout is?
No, so that is at this moment. So, as of right now, his salary cap hit is technically just kind of his bonus proration, right? Almost like a dead cap number effectively right now because that money cannot be moved. But his salary is removed. I want to say the incentives he hit last year would still count against the cap right now. I probably should clarify that. But anyway, so it's either, $7 or about $8 million is counting against the Chiefs cap right now for Chris Jones. And then each week that, they would, in theory, take away a salary that is gone. I guess that would be a credit next year. But you think back to like a Le'Veon Bell when he sat out with his franchise tag, the Steelers would get a cap credit each week in the moment. It actually wasn't, in the annual adjustment after the year. It was in real time. So, I guess Chris Jones, it would be immediate, but it obviously wouldn't matter until he's back on the roster. But then let's say he joins in week 5, his salary would be 13, 17th, or whatever, 14, 18th of what it actually would have been.
Interesting. Yeah. So in theory, the Chiefs could go out and sign somebody right now if they needed help at the defensive end, defensive tackle spot. I mean, we've talked about Carlos Dunlap or Melvin Ingram or something like that all summer of wondering if that would be somebody they would bring in, especially when Charles Omenihu was announced for a 6-game suspension. In theory, while the Chiefs a couple of days ago had like $100,000 under the cap, now with Chris Jones on the non-report, they would have some space to be able to sign somebody. They would have to then get right with the league when he reports then, or at least when they officially take him off the exempt list.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I wonder if they are looking at some options. I think they knew when signing Charles Omenihu, there was probably a decent likelihood that he was going to be suspended for a stretch of games. And obviously, they trade in division for Neil Farrell Jr., the D tackle from the Las Vegas Raiders yesterday, who was underwhelming last year. But, rookie 4th rounder, you see what you have there. And then maybe you start to have some of those phone calls we've seen, with the Buccaneers and the Eagles. You call your Akeem Hickses, your Ndamukong Suhs. There are a lot of those guys, those wily veterans, probably not guys you want to play 800 snaps in a season anymore, but, can maybe give you 25, 30 solid reps early on in the year. I think maybe they look that route as well.
Are you surprised that Chris Jones is not in camp right now? That, it certainly felt like the relationship was there, that he was going to show up and something was going to get done. It just seemed like it was a given all summer long, right? With the, whether fans, analysts of, well, they're going to get something done. Chris Jones has a great relationship. Brett Veach has a great relationship. And I think they're both probably in the same mindset of where those numbers should be. The report was Chris Jones wanted to be the 2nd highest paid defensive tackle. Makes sense. But are you surprised it's gone this far and there are still reports about they're not close?
I am a little bit surprised, at least because coming into the offseason, I think they would get this done. But I really do think these young defensive tackles that got all their extensions caused a problem in negotiations because, I think Quinton Williams at 24, Jeffrey Simmons 23.5, go down the list. Dexter Lawrence 22.5. I was underwhelmed by all of those deals. I didn't think they were going to get Aaron Donald money, but I thought they would get into 25, 26 range, and then Chris Jones would get 27, 28 range. And now for all of those guys who, look, Chris Jones is better than all those players, and those are phenomenal football players, but he is better. But he's also 5 years older than all of them. And I think Kansas City, has shown, a fear of doing that third contract sometimes, which, historically is good business. Again, I'm not saying I expect Chris Jones to fall off a cliff. Very, very good for a couple more years. But, yeah, I think the divide now and the gap between the two parties kind of makes sense. And then the last piece, I think there might be some minor relationship between look, Nick Bosa obviously does not play the same position, but I'm sure he's trying to top Aaron Donald as the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. And it's, so he's not signed either. You got guys like Brian Burns that I think are probably trying to get in the range of $30 million and so on and so forth. Maybe they're all kind of looking at each other and playing a game of chicken and just not wanting to go first.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I know that Chris Jones has sort of thought of himself as a hybrid type player, not necessarily a specific defensive tackle, but someone that also plays defensive end a number of times. I mean, one of the highlights that's been getting played all summer or nationally when people are talking about Chris Jones has been that sack against the Bengals and Joe Burrow in the AFC Championship game. He lined up at defensive end at that spot, so understandably, wanting that particular money. I think people also get caught up on, well, he wants Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's making like 31. Does Chris Jones get to 30 or $31 million? I think it's the guaranteed. I don't even think it's the yearly. I mean, you can finagle a way to pay Chris Jones $31 million per year and say, hey, you're making Aaron Donald money, $31 million per year with the $30 million guaranteed. Like, to me, I think it's like the guaranteed dollars that really it comes down to, right? Do you think people are making a mistake focusing on the annual average value and not the guaranteed money that might be the Katz brothers and Chris Jones wanting to get closer and nudge closer to that Aaron Donald number?
Yeah, no, I do. I agree with you. I think his contract is not just about the overall value. It's strong. I mean, he also had $60 million of that fully guaranteed. The cash flows are it's not like it's heavily backloaded, all of those things. So, yeah, it sounds like actually, from what I'm hearing, it's more about the details and the guarantees. Obviously, I'm sure he'd like a large number as well. But, yeah, I think he also wants a ton of assurances, and that may be more of a holdup than the actual, overall value.
Visiting with Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus is our guest. Do you think Nick Bosa's holdout goes into the season, or do they get something done with him before their season gets rolling?
It's crazy. I would have told you, a week ago or throughout the entire offseason, there's no way they let this linger into the regular season. But at this point, I mean, we're really, really close, and there still isn't going to be any movement at all. I mean, I haven't heard much about progress there or how close they are. I am guessing he's probably asking for $32, $33 million a year, and I get that's a massive expenditure. But, I mean, we're talking about, Defensive Player of the Year caliber guy every single season, sack leader over the last 2 years. I want to say they find a way to get it done. We saw Joey Bosa go down to the wire with the Chargers as well. Brian Ayral, his agent, is a very good agent and is not going to take a bad deal. The Niners are very tough to negotiate with. Their contract structured in a very unique and specific way. We saw them trade DeForest Buckner. They're not afraid to make those moves, but I just think Bosa is a different type guy. I think they will get it done, but it could come right down to, we're talking 48 hours before kickoff, kind of like a Quentin Nelson situation from last year.
Would a team use, Brad Spielberger, our guest from Pro Football Focus, would a team use a roster exempt? I brought this up yesterday. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'll ask you if there's any precedent for it. Would a team use like a bargaining chip, sort of a hardline stance from a team? Let's say, hypothetically, Brett Veach, Clark Hunt, they're in contact with the Katz brothers and Chris Jones. Hey, Chris, if you don't show up by Tuesday, we're going to put you on the roster exempt list. And whether you show up or not, you're not playing week one, and we're going to keep you on the roster exempt list, so you're not going to get that money whenever you show up. And we'll keep you on there and keep going until you show up, and then we're going to give a week grace period after you show up. Just know that that's what's going to happen, so you need to get into camp right now. Have teams used that as a bargaining chip to sort of force the hand of a player, and then if a player shows up, they keep them on the exempt list? that would feel like it would create a lot of ill will. I don't think it's going to happen. I would highly doubt it would happen with the Chiefs and Chris Jones. When he shows up, I think he'll be taken off the list. But have teams done that in the past of using that exempt list as a negotiation tactic to, if you don't show up at this time, we're going to keep you on the exempt list longer than maybe you want, even if you show up?
Maybe it's been, weaponized behind the scenes. Not something I've heard about personally, and I do think you kind of, touched on it there. You do want to be, draw a hard line and stick with where you're at and hold to your position, but you don't want to, fracture the relationship and cause further problems. So, I think they already to a degree have, the fines are approaching $2 million. I think they are around $2 million today. Obviously, he can miss game checks starting in week 1. So, I don't think so. I think maybe things are said, but I think the day he reports, I think they'll work through it all.
Visiting with the Brad Spielberger Pro Football Focus. Last one for you. Do you think, or when do you think something gets done with Joe Burrow? It's been a contract we've been following, and a lot of talk was that it would get done before the season. They were waiting for Justin Herbert. That's been done. Do you think something gets done with Joe Burrow soon, or is this one that maybe goes through the season?
I think it'd be kind of crazy if it doesn't. In particular with quarterback, ignoring every other position, there's just simply no reason not to get it done as soon as possible. I mean, you wait with Joe Burrow, and then for all we know, Trevor Lawrence is going to get $60 million after the season, and then you're giving Joe Burrow $62 million, and it's $10 million more than you could have given him. So I do think it will. There in Cincinnati, the biggest thing is the structure and just how they can figure out the guarantees and the cash flows, especially after Justin Herbert. So I'll say yes, it gets done. I'm not shocked it's taking this long. I wonder if maybe the injury, they want to see him 100% healthy, all of those things. But I think it would just be insane to not get this thing done before they kick off week 1.
I know I told you that was the last one. Real quick, are you surprised that more teams didn't keep a third quarterback with the new rule that it's sort of that free active player on game day? You have to have him on the 53-man roster, but are you surprised that more teams didn't maybe take advantage of the, hey, you get this third quarterback just in case as a emergency type deal?
I think what they're going to do is they're going to see some pretty good quarterbacks on practice squads and be competitive. And teams paying them the maximum amount to be on the practice squad, maybe even elevating them, even when they don't need them, just elevating them the 3 times to get them those game checks and then make it so they can't go back to the P squad. So, no, because I think they really do value these 53 spots for special teams and depth and all these things. But I think you're going to see more and more kind of aggressiveness in how these teams, approach adding that third quarterback to their roster, even if it is on the practice squad.
Be interesting to see. Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus, does a great job there. Brad, really appreciate the time as always. Thank you, and certainly the news will keep coming over the next day or so, and it does not slow down right now. So, and then the season starts. So, Brad, thank you for the time as always. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, there's Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus, joining us here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Interesting as he was talking about the salary cap right now for the Chiefs with Chris Jones not on the 53-man roster, being on the exempt list. They are not paying him his salary, so they do get that cap relief except for bonuses, et cetera, things like that. So they would have the ability right now to go out and sign somebody, have the ability to go out and sign a Carlos Dunlap or a Melvin Ingram, something like that. They would have that ability to go and do that because they would have some space right now under the cap. They would certainly have to then get right with the NFL when they took Chris Jones off the exempt list. So we'll see what could be done when he will show up. But certainly there's a lot of moving parts still for the Chiefs. Waivers coming in and IR return, things like that over the next 4 or 5 hours as well. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live.
Thank you to Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus, weighing in on a number of things with the Chiefs and then also around the NFL. The two holdouts that continue to go on in the NFL, the Chris Jones and Nick Bosa, that we know the Chris Jones holdout does not seem to be, the sides don't seem to be close. And at one point there was optimism for Nick Bosa. Now it feels like the sides may not be close. He even threw out there the possibility that maybe the Katz brothers are waiting for Nick Bosa to get his contract. We thought we were looking at it going, well, we'll wait for Quinnen Williams and Jeffrey Simmons, and once those guys are done, that's going to pave the way for Chris Jones to be able to work out his deal just somewhere in the middle there. But if he is waiting for Nick Bosa and saying, well, no, I'm a hybrid. I got that sack against the Bengals as a defensive end. I'm not just your regular defensive tackle. I'm also a defensive end. So maybe I need to be paid as Aaron Donald and then also what Nick Bosa is getting. You can sort of add that little bit to it, huh?
I'm kind of the quarterback of the defense. Maybe I get paid kind of the midway point between Bosa and like Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, Mac Jones is getting $40 million. He's not even a quarterback of Mac Jones.
So you said Mac Jones. He's
Jones.
the only quarterback on that
Yes.
offense.
Daniel Jones is getting like $40 million, and he's not even the quarterback of their offense. I should probably get the name right if I'm going to get to some sort of a joke.
Details.
But we'll see when Nick Bosa shows up. We'll see when Chris Jones shows up. And he also was a little surprised that Joe Burrow's contract has not been done yet. And that's still out there because they were waiting, we thought, for Justin Herbert. Once that was done, then some of those details get filled in and you can move on. And that hasn't been the case with the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. So,
well, I got a report here from an hour ago about Nick Bosa, but I don't know exactly where it's. I'm working on it.
A darn Schefter?
It's not a darn Schefter. It's just that Twitter has gotten harder to use and harder to figure out. It's not a name I recognize, but it is a guy with some media bylines saying that Bosa will be with it. This is from Jason Dumas on Twitter, who is his Twitter bio says that he is the sports director of a news station and also on 95.7 The Game there. So this feels
it's somebody that plausible. May have some credibility that would be lost if he gets it wrong.
Yes. So yeah, there's something on the line there. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure it was that and not a darn Schefter. But Jason Dumas tweets, source, Nick Bosa will be with the team and available to play week 1 in Pittsburgh. The two sides plan to get a deal done, quote, within the next few days, unquote. So that report would indicate like a imminent contract extension as the end of that, but that he would be able to be with the team in week 1. So we'll see. But breaking news.
Is there more breaking news, or is that just the breaking news for that? That was the cap to the breaking news. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes Dylan, that's the correct usage of the breaking news sounder. Now that I know you found that button, and I had forgotten this bit existed, now we can just call for breaking news at any point. Breaking news! Dylan found the breaking news button. There you go.
There it is. It's like quotations.
It's like that's exactly right.
Parenthetically speaking, there you go. Chris Jones' salary cap number right now for the Chiefs is roughly $8.3 million. It is not the $28 million or so that his salary cap number would be. So the Chiefs have some room now. They can just go wild, just go crazy, just to go on a spending spree. You know what? Don't worry about it. It's a credit card. You don't even have to. You know what? Just write some checks.
That's a great analogy. It's a credit card.
Awesome.
They can spend some money right now, but what happens when the bill does come due? That's exactly what it is. It is a credit card.
Yeah. Luckily, they have interest-free payments right now.
That's right.
But they are going to have to figure out how you fit it in the budget when the payment comes due, and that payment coming due would be Chris Jones when he shows up and when you take him off the exempt list, because his base salary is not counted towards the salary cap right now. And talking with Brad Spielberger, trying to get some sort of a clarification with that, in that, no, they get immediate relief right now because the $19 million is not counting against the cap. But as the weeks go on, those dollars are then post-season adjusted and then whether rolled over, if you used them, didn't use them, all of that stuff. So that's going to be the interesting part about if there are game checks being missed, and then specifically that week. But if it's in the middle of the season and you're not using that, then it can be rolled over or will be rolled over, but then even a possibility of using that. Because right now, they can't use Chris Jones' first game check, the $1.15 million in salary cap, because they don't know if they're going to have to pay him that or not.
Right. They in this moment, to my understanding, per NFL rules, they totally could go sign Carlos Dunlap.
Absolutely.
But if Chris Jones reports 15 minutes after Carlos Dunlap signs, now the Chiefs have a roster problem. They have a financial problem there. You could what I've been wondering. I've been thinking about this. I was thinking about this all morning, which is a really cool way for me to spend my brain power. Just driving in total silence, just thinking about the contract, the salary cap implications of Chris Jones. I got to get some more hobbies. But sorry, I saw a tweet from Rappaport, unrelated, about Jonathan Taylor and the Packers. We're good, everybody.
Okay.
But if you were going to use this allocation of Chris Jones to give yourself some flexibility now to sign a guy like Carlos Dunlap, right? As long as you have an if-then plan, I think you could still do that, where you say, okay, we're going to sign Carlos Dunlap, and if Chris Jones comes back, we restructure Travis Kelce's contract. We're going to sign Carlos Dunlap. If Chris Jones doesn't come back, we're going to just let this thing play out. You've got to have a plan for the plan, and I'm sure the Chiefs are frustrated by having 500 different versions of plans around Chris Jones stuff this year, but it does feel like there's at least a chance they could kind of forge a path that gives them some flexibility today if they want it. But it's so convoluted and just not something. Has there been a Chiefs player put on this list since it's existed? I mean, in the last 20 years or something?
I don't know if honestly, I wasn't covering the team in '98 when Dan Williams sat out the whole year.
So let's say, I mean, in this millennium,
and John Tate was out for the first 2 weeks of the regular season when he went through his contract dispute.
And what year was that? I know we had on Sports Leisure.
99, 2000, 2001, something like that.
Right around the turn of the century.
Yeah,
though,
right.
Right?
Yep, right around Y2K.
Yeah.
So he missed the first 2 weeks. He was placed on some sort of a list. I don't know if it was the same exact thing. Again, CBAs and language have changed so much, but he missed the first 2 weeks because he showed up late and signed that contract late. Not sure how those particulars worked. Those are the two that come to mind.
In the last 20 years, and with a superstar player with 2 Super Bowl rings and a long, contentious negotiation process, who had the goodwill of the fan base built up, who had a relationship with the front office, all of that. I mean, this is ultimately, and already, just again one of the most sort of contentious, and not even I don't know how contentious it is behind the scenes, but one of the most convoluted and constantly unknown contract situations in Chiefs history. Doesn't feel very good for a player who is as close to vital for this team's success as anyone who doesn't wear number 15 or 87. I guess that was true for Tyreek Hill also. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's true the same way.
But it's just, I mean, we can continue to go back and just say, like, it's the situation that I didn't think we'd be breaking down the day after cutdown day.
Me neither.
But when's Chris Jones going to report? What's that do for the salary cap? What's that do for the 53-man roster? Who's on the roster in Chris Jones's stead? Who's on the roster for Charles Omenihu? I mean, he's out for 6 weeks. He does not count against the 53-man roster. Those are 2 players right there that don't count against the 53-man roster. Where in other years, if Chris Jones had reported and Omenihu was not suspended, there are 2 players on this roster right now that would not be on the Chiefs' 53-man roster. Is that as simple as Matt Dickerson and Malik Herring? Omenihu for Herring, Chris Jones for Dickerson? I mean, I don't know what it means. Is it Omenihu for Cam Jones or something like that? You're exchanging a defensive end for a linebacker, I don't know what those implications would be, but those are 2 roster spots that they have available because of these issues that are not ideal. One, a holdout. The other one, rough allegations with Charles Omenihu. So is it going to be 6 weeks? Are they going to appeal? I have heard nothing about whether or not they will appeal.
The Willie Gay suspension was negotiated down to 4 before it was announced.
Right.
So my hunch is that the appeal process would have been behind closed doors, not. I don't know if that's an optics thing the NFL has realized. Like, hey, maybe we don't quote give up ground on domestic violence allegations, and we just figure this out behind the scenes and actually figure out those terms. But I haven't heard anyone serious talk about appealing that at all. I wonder if it was already kind of just agreed to.
Some small little notes around the NFL. Ronnie Bell made the San Francisco 49ers 53-man roster as a wide receiver. So
Superstar of the zone.
congrats to Ronnie Bell.
Big congrats.
That's right. He was in here in studio before the week of the draft. It was at Wednesday before the draft. Came in here, he and his dad, and didn't know where he was going to end up and what day he would go. He ended up with the San Francisco 49ers, and he has had some really impressive plays. Mm-hmm. He's also had some plays where he's got to clean up. There were 2 passes that went through his hands that turned out to be interceptions for the 49ers, and something that Kyle Shanahan had talked about that, you got to catch those. Those have to be catches. But he did enough that he made the 53-man roster for the 49ers. There have been some injuries, so an opportunity for Ronnie Bell, even maybe first game of the season. The odd circumstance where Doug Peterson cut his son, Josh Peterson. Football terms, like he didn't just take a knife to him or anything.
Josh might have cut him.
He waved his son. Bye, Josh. I hope you find your dad. You're right there. You just kicked me off your team.
Really twisting the knife.
And then there's a video out there. I didn't cut it because it's not necessarily the best for radio because it's sort of a belabored, I should say, video. But it's Cody Ford, who is a Cincinnati Bengals tackle, and he and his significant other are driving around in the car at like 3:57 Eastern time, and he hasn't been called yet. And so she's just got the phone recording him, and he's like, stop, because they're trying to look at 4 o'clock. If he hasn't got a call by 4 o'clock, he's made the team because the rosters have to be into the NFL by 4 o'clock. And he hasn't been called yet, and so they're sitting there driving. It's like 4 minutes long, so I didn't want to cut it. But she's like, you haven't been called yet. He's like, seriously, like, stop. She's like, well, we're going to show this to our kids. This is gonna, you're on the roster. And they count down, and then like they're driving, they come to a stoplight, and it was kind of cool. And they come to a stoplight next to a church, and the church bells start chiming
for 4 o'clock.
For 4 o'clock.
That's amazing.
And then the clock says 4 o'clock. She's like, you made the rush. She starts crying, and he's just like, just sort of sitting there. You can tell like he wants to get emotional, but the camera's on. So he's trying to like totally play it cool. I thought that was pretty neat. Like that moment sort of, you've been waiting all day. What's that day like for somebody like that? Like if you had the camera on him all day, like the quarterback series, but you just had it on somebody that was, potentially getting cut. And I know Hard Knocks does some of that. But I mean, like they have it to where they're showing up to the facility and it's like, hey, we gotta talk to you, need you to bring your playbook or whatever that is.
Bring your iPad now, I guess. Yeah.
But like throughout that day, what's it like? I mean, Gary Dieter talks about, the last time he was cut was on the drive in. Like he got a call and then it was, hey, you need to come up here. He said, I knew exactly what it was. Went to Greg Lewis's office and was like, what's up? And Greg Lewis was like, I don't know anything. So then he went there and ended up getting released. Although he did say, a little disappointed it wasn't Brett Veach.
Yeah.
Did that. It was like it was some random slappy. He said with no personality, but he said, but then he did get a call from Andy Reid and things like that. But you're just driving. That wasn't even cut down day. That was just driving to the facility to work out or whatever. And it's like, hey, we need you to come in because that was mid-season or whatever, or mid-off season. But a day like yesterday for some of these players, just sitting around waiting and hoping your phone does not ring.
You live all day waiting for bad news.
Yep.
And I would be very interested to know from Cody Ford's perspective or whoever now, when do you really relax? Because I think
at 4 o'clock is when he relaxes, but the roster has to be in at 4. So can you start relaxing at like 3:30?
Well, this is a really good indicator of my personality. Then maybe I'm learning something about myself here because I don't think I would be relaxed until the ball is kicked on week 1, maybe.
Well, yeah.
Certainly like game week, though, right?
That's true.
Because of all of the rest of the roster, the waiver process and the practice squads and all of that. Like, Amir Smith-Marset did everything he could for a year. Like, he really nailed every assignment that we saw publicly, at least. And then he got traded for a 7th-round conditional pick swap on his birthday. Like, that was his reward.
Yeah.
Like, his present was that. You get to go to Carolina now and hopefully stick onto this roster. If you're... I don't know. I don't want to like pick on anybody in particular, but I mean, like Dieter talking about that kind of from that perspective. I just that has to be you can't be thinking about it every rep every day. It gets too deep in your head. But I imagine that around cut down week or whatever, When is Matt Dickerson gonna feel like he can pop a little champagne bottle? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Or are you just waiting for 95 to show up and then you're a practice squad member again? It's got to be a very, very tense, weird time for a job that looks like a blast on Sundays and really stressful pretty much every other day. Ooh, breaking news.
The Chiefs have claimed cornerback Darius Rush off waivers from the Colts.
I mean, is there a... I'll tell you what. I would love for you to name one show in this town that has mentioned the name Darius Rush today.
That feels like a pretty good called shot. Are you kidding me? Dylan, courtesy of, reported by...
Field Yates, friend of the show.
Oh, my... That's a double whammy. That's a double whammy.
Is there another show in town?
No!
Name another show or podcast
In the world!
town that has mentioned Darius Rush and the Chiefs today at all. You heard it here first, folks. Darius Rush has been claimed off waivers. So now, is that Cam Jones? You were just talking about Cam Jones.
Yeah.
Because claimed off waivers, he's got to be on the 53. So, well, it also could be a designated IR designated to return. It could be L'Jarius Sneed.
Ooh, I would be less. That would really take the air out of how excited
Oh,
I
for
was
sure.
that you had this called shot like an hour ago.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And again, you can go back and look at some draft profiles and things like that. That was a surprise that he was cut. For me, was Darius Rush yesterday.
I'm even more surprised he made it to 32.
Yeah, right. That is a really interesting point that he made it to pick number 32 in the waiver process. But he's 6'2", 200, runs a 4.36 at the combine, and has 34-inch arms. He has Spags cornerback written all over him. But he's got some project things to him because other things he's got to work on. He was a 5th rounder for a reason. Dane Brugler had him as a 2nd/3rd round cornerback because of some of the unteachable traits, which we know the Chiefs love traits.
Yep.
Get them in, and we'll teach you how to play football. We will give you the techniques. We'll give you, we'll best utilize all of your skill set, but we'll bring you in here because we can't teach 6'2", 200, 4.36, and 34-inch arms.
Here's another interesting thing now as waiver claims are all through. One Chief was claimed here who will not be on the Chiefs practice squad because Khalif Halasi is going straight to the Browns active roster.
Good for Khalif.
The Browns claim Khalif Halasi obviously had a couple of great moments in that second preseason game, but no other Chiefs claimed here. Old friend Zan Anderson goes from Buffalo to Green Bay. Green Bay put in a waiver claim on him, but that means great story for Halasi. The Chiefs add a DB of their own here in return, and Tristan Colon, former Mizzou center, is a Cardinal now. He got waived by the Jets. That one's a little local flavor for you. But I think that's
what was that last one? I'm sorry, I was reading.
Tristan Colon, the former Mizzou center, was waived by the Jets, and the Cardinals claimed him.
Okay, so some of those.
But that's it for as far as the local connections, and that means that everyone who the Chiefs cut yesterday, except for Khalif Halasi, is eligible to be added to the Chiefs practice squad. That includes Echo Boydo. That includes Danny Shelton, Shane Buechele. I get literally everybody.
So
literally everybody.
Yeah, you can
both
keep
running
naming
backs.
people.
Both
Yeah.
running backs.
That's a good point. P. Ryan
about.
and Prince.
Matt Bushman. I mean, a lot of those bubble guys just passed through the rest of the league.
Kennard.
Except for Darian Kennard. I'm a little surprised by that. I was
it's
expecting to see his name on this list, actually, as a recent draft pick. So that's actually like kind of big news for the Chiefs. At least we're talking about how fun and Bailey Zappi cleared waivers.
Yeah.
Patriots practice squad.
When Dylan hit the breaking news, I thought it was the text he sent us was Field Yates saying that Bailey Zappi had cleared waivers and was going to the practice squad. But then he says Darius Rush claimed by the Chiefs. And I'm like, well, I mean, text says Darius Rush claimed by the Chiefs. Quick, Jason, tell us when Chris Jones signs. Blind squirrel, all of that stuff, you know.
Dylan, here's a project for us to figure out today. Is we got to go back. We got to find the original mention in hour 1, and then your breaking news announcement hour 2. We can just bring that together, and we'll have a beautiful little celebration circle on Friday.
Text says the one Rush I didn't know. That's right. Other text says Kadarius, L'Jarius, and Darius.
Wow!
Yes,
they got another one.
Love it.
The Arias backfield continues.
Well, Kadarius on the offense, but still, L'Jarius
Yeah, sure.
and
Also,
Darius.
yeah, that's true.
That's fine.
We
You need to be more Awarius.
I haven't I haven't fully recovered from losing Thacarius still.
I know. God,
So I'm glad to have a couple Ariases back there.
You need the backfield of L'Jarius, Thacarius, and Darius. Bring back Bo Pete. Bring back Bo Pete. Bring back Bo Pete. No nukes. No nukes. You won't get that.
No, I was trying to come up with a funny, like,
won't get
kind of
that.
sheep
Not a big
thing.
deal.
Bo Peep. I thought I was going to
No, you're
get
fine.
somewhere, but I really didn't. I was too busy thinking about
Tex
the
wants to know,
Chiefs
was that
defensive
Asa
backs.
Lacy?
Was who Asa Lacy?
When you were going through different names and everything, the waivers and claims and stuff and practice squad, etc.
I don't
Said
see
Lacy.
Asa Lacy's
Yeah,
name
said
on
that.
anything.
Asa Lacy. Yeah.
on anything.
That'd be
Did I say
great.
Oh, Lacy?
Was he claimed by
Oh, Hell
anybody?
Lacy. That was
Yeah,
that
Lacy.
was a Asa Lacy, Khalif Lacy. Hey, sorry to text her. I got so excited when that news came down via Dylan that my head's still spinning.
Tex says Clyde Edwards hilarious. Yeah. Thanks, Texter.
We'll have to look and see if there are any more Ariases hit the open market.
That would be great. So now we'll need to find out what the subsequent move is going to be for the Chiefs, and I wonder if that is an IR designated to return.
And just in practice squad news, that comes around now. Matt Derrick reports that Austin Ryder will be to the practice squad.
There you go. That expected, but also good that you got a backup center, a guy who's also played a little guard. Allegretti on the 53-man roster, Caliendo on the 53-man roster. Caliendo can play some center, and we know Allegretti is the first up backup center. Ryder on the practice squad now. Allegretti, depending on the shoulder injury, could be IR designated to return, and then that would free up a roster spot. But they need to free up at least one roster spot right now because they have claimed one person off of waivers, and apparently they have threaded that needle. So we've talked about that would be an incredibly fine needle to thread if the Chiefs were wanting to claim somebody off waivers that would be good enough for their roster that was cut by a roster that is probably inferior to theirs, and 31 other teams or 30 other teams did not place a waiver claim in on that player.
And if it was going to be for anybody, I mean, maybe it could be for Darius Rush. I mean, that really feels like a Brett Veach special.
I mean, it's a Spag special, man.
It's both. It's both. It's both. It's lost draft value, reclaimed for a guy you may have had a nice evaluation on.
Yep.
And also, you know who his roster spot might really be taken from? It might really be Najee Johnson. Like you know, you have that sort of other spot there. And again, I bet
Even
they
though
tried
he's
to
not
get
already on the 53.
right.
I see what
Big
you're
picture,
saying.
metaphorically, kind of right, is that if you have Najee Johnson, maybe you don't have a 53-man roster spot for a guy you haven't actually seen like in your own practices. But as you were talking about, you know, the cornerback group, and there's still being questions about Watson and Williams, and I mean, Nick Jones, we still don't know exactly what his whole process is going to look like. Did he hasn't? Have we seen him or heard from him since his fingers were broken?
I mean, he's just on the 53. He won't have surgery.
Right, but he could still definitely be a designated to return guy.
He absolutely could be, but he won't have surgery, which to me is more likely that he's not going to be IR designated to return because he won't have. He didn't have to have surgery on his fingers. Because I think the question was if he had to have surgery, it was going to be a longer recovery.
Yes,
or just sort of fix him.
Right.
And then
club
let
it
him
up
heal
or whatever. And
something like that. Yeah. But old friend, old name alert. Zane Anderson, claimed by Green Bay.
Zane Anderson. I read that a second ago. You're reading text. It was okay. If it wasn't your last name, I think I would have let it go.
It's all good. It's no big deal.
I just thought you'd know where your cousin was.
Yeah, he's now in Green Bay. He was in Buffalo.
Twice removed?
On my mother's side, by marriage.
How are family reunions after he had that special teams penalty? Was that?
They didn't go over well.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they
Well,
were.
look, I'm glad he's still getting work.
Good for him. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling more Zone right after this.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 8.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. News for the Chiefs. They are starting to sign some practice squad players. Austin Ryder, Reese Taylor to the practice squad. They have claimed off of waivers from the Indianapolis Colts, Darius Rush, cornerback from South Carolina. He was a fifth-round draft pick this year and a surprise roster cut. And somebody that if you were listening in the 10 o'clock hour, you would already be familiar with his name because we talked about Darius Rush being a surprise cut by the Colts and is a perfect Chief cornerback. 6'2", 200, runs a 4.36 with 34-inch arms. It's got Spags written all over him, and the Chiefs made a waiver claim on him. So, seriously, just listen to the show, and we'll let you know.
We should get reported first credit on this one. Brett Veach is going to be texting around. Do we have a bug in the office?
Breaking news. The Chiefs have claimed Darius Rush that the Zone reported in the 10 o'clock hour.
Matt Lane of the KCSN tweeted out the draft guide they do and his player comp for Darius Rush. The player comp for Darius Rush.
L'Jarius Sneed.
How about Thacarius Keys? Bo Pete Keys is the player comp for Darius Rush.
That's funny.
This man's been a Chief the whole time. We just didn't know it yet.
But Thacarius is Darius, and hopefully there's news on Kadarius.
Hey, this is SSJ for Window Nation. Feeling the heat? High temps aren't the only thing getting...
free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Josh Briscoe, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. We will hang out with Mick Schaefer coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. Right now, let's talk with Jeff Montgomery, Bally Sports Royals Hall of Famer. He is presented by First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Is your man cave ready? Complete your game day setup with a home equity line of credit from First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Get game day ready at ffbkc.com. Monty, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
Oh, doing pretty good, Jason. Hoping to get a way to finish off the series with a win here tonight, but so far hasn't been good.
Yeah, that would be nice. It's pretty interesting that mentioned it last night. That seems like when the Royals, it's been a crazy 24 hours. When the Royals are playing against teams that are in playoff contention, I don't know. It seems like they're in the game. It seems like they're closer. They win some of those and. Maybe some of these teams lesser than aren't necessarily the same. Is there anything to put your finger on with that? Is that just baseball? Is it coincidence, not correlation, causation, anything like that?
I wish I had a really good answer for you, but I don't. And I think it's a lot like when you talk about teams, I don't care what the sport is. I'll use football since we're getting ready to start football season. How many times do the Chiefs play good enough to win a football game? They may be down, find a way to come back and put things together, find a way to win. And it just has not been the case with this Royals baseball team this year. And we've had seasons where it has been. In those championship years, you certainly had that feeling they were never out of a game. This year, it almost seems like even if they're winning coming up late, they're never in a position where you feel really good about them winning the game. And a lot of that's related to a lot of shuffling around in the bullpen.
Well, this is a year that's an evaluation season, as we've talked about. And my goodness, they have a guy on the mound every 5 days in Cole Reagan who is – one of, in the month of August, the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. That's what he's been, the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. He's number one in pitching WAR at 1.8, Monty. Second place in the month of August in pitching WAR is 1.2. The difference between Cole Reagan's and the second best pitcher in terms of WAR in the month of August is the same difference as number 2 to 26. That's how far and away Cole Reagan's is from number one to the rest of the field. It's been an absolute joy and delight to watch him go out there and pitch. What's going on with this kid? And is there, the Royals seem to have found something. How real and tangible do you think this is now? 7 starts. It's not just 1 or 2. This is now 7 starts, Monty, that he's been this good, this dominant.
Well, his stuff is outstanding. There's no doubt about that. I think the thing about him is, obviously, he had Tommy John twice. So he had to recover and come back. And when you're trying to come back and pitch sporadically out of a bullpen like he was with the Texas Rangers, maybe a little more difficult to get your footing and get things going on a consistent basis. But now that he's in this rotation with the Royals, he's taken the ball and ran with it. There's no doubt about that. And talking about stuff, here's a guy that seems like in the 6th or 7th inning, his stuff's just as good as it is in the 1st or 2nd inning. So that's the thing that's very impressive to me. He's got a fastball that he uses both up in the zone and down in the zone in the mid to upper 90s, and occasionally will clip 100 miles an hour. And then he's got all the off-speed stuff, the changeup, the curveball, the slider. These are all pitches that are kind of finishing in the bottom part of the zone. So he's just really on the way to take advantage of both top and bottom of the strike zone with a lot of variety and a lot of really above average stuff. So I don't think it's anything. It's a fluke. If you're going out there with smoke and mirrors, getting guys out, it's a different thing. But he's going out there with pure stuff. And the thing that I am happy about, the thing that I like, is the fact that he's already had the Tommy John surgery. So that's not something you say, well, is this something that we're going to have to keep our eye on? He's had it twice, and I think it's unfortunate that he had to go through it twice. But I think I think everybody feels pretty certain that he's not going to have to deal with an elbow issue ever again, because he's wound pretty tight now.
Well, we talked a couple of weeks ago about Cole Reagan's, and as the starts continue to accumulate, there's more and more evidence. There's more and more of a book on you. This is now 7 starts. At what point, when we say, boy, the league is going to start to develop a book on that particular person, what he does well, what's the scouting report? At what point is there that quote-unquote book? And how many starts has Cole Riggins had in Major League Baseball when teams have had the book, the scouting report on what he offers when they're going up there to the plate?
Well, they've had a book on him for a long time now. I mean, he's been in the major leagues for a while. They've got a book on him, but they've had book on guys like Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. They had books on all those guys. But when you have superior stuff, I mean, it plays, and there's no doubt good pitching is going to be, good hitting almost every night. Now, Cole Riggins has been on a roll, and at some point, you can't expect him to pitch 7 shutout innings, 9 strikeouts, and 1 walk every time he goes out there. He's going to hit a bump in the road, but so far, he's only had really 1 start that you would look at and say that was the one that. Let's see how he bounces back from it. I think it's his 3rd or 4th start. Let's see how he bounces back. But sure enough, he's just bounced back just as strong in his effects. And I know going into last night, the Royals were 2-11 in their last 13 games, and obviously now 2-12. But he had started those two games that they won. So he's the guy that was a stopper. He was the guy that you really want to be out there. And certainly last night pitched good enough to get a win. And I hope that no decision last night doesn't affect the voting with regards to pitcher of the month. Because, like you mentioned, he certainly has earned the chance to be the American League pitcher of the month.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm totally with you on that. And it's a good point. We talked whenever that outing was that he had given up a few runs. And it's like, okay, is this the shine coming off, or is this what it looks like when he doesn't have his stuff and he doesn't have a great outing, that it's going to be, 5, 6 innings, 4 earned runs? And I remember that conversation with you, and it was like, look, he didn't pitch well and found a way to get through the innings. He didn't, give up a huge inning and then just collapse and can't find it. He got through there and wasn't happy with his outing, and we'll see how he responds. And I think we've got the answer to that, Monty, that if we look at what he's done, maybe the floor through 7 starts is when he felt like he just didn't have it that day, and he still, gave the Royals a chance to, go out and win a ball game when it's, 5 innings and 3 earned runs. That was the bad outing for him, was 5 innings, 3 earned runs.
Yeah, and you just love to see a guy that takes the mound, and obviously he wants the ball, but he's a bulldog. This guy, he's got tremendous locked-in focus, and I think some other younger pitchers are starting to see some things from him that they want to replicate and emulate because, and I've heard a couple of them talk about it, the fact that he goes out there and he's got one thing on his mind, and that's throwing quality strikes from the first pitch he throws to the last pitch he throws. And I've heard him say it a couple times in his post-game press conferences that, hey, I left everything out there tonight. I emptied the tank. And when you have a guy that goes out with that mentality, with that that bulldog attitude and the focus that he has from first pitch to last pitch, not everybody has the ability to do that, but maybe we found something with Cole Riggins.
Jeff Montgomery's our guest. Is there anything the Royals have done since he came to the organization in that Aroldis Chapman deal, which, by the way, if Riggins looks anything like this continuing, that will be one of the greatest steals in Major League Baseball in terms of a trade. And I don't think that would be hyperbole if he pitches anywhere near this, because a rental reliever that you paid, a couple million for, and you get this guy for, what could be 5-6 years. But is there anything the Royals did when they acquired him to change anything? Or was Cole Riggins going to be this guy? It was a matter of time before, that health, the confidence, or whatever it might be out there on the mound. Have you seen anything or heard that the Royals pitching staff, coaches have done with him?
Well, the biggest thing I think they've done is they've incorporated a slider. A slider is a pitch that he threw earlier in his career, but it's also a pitch that he had really kind of put on the side when he was pitching out of the bullpen with the Rangers. So I think coming in with that, with that extra pitch, it's just something that clicked for him, and I think it made him feel really confident about his ability to mix things up and just one other, additive, I guess, to your arsenal.
Yeah, visiting with Jeff Montgomery, Bally Sports Royals Hall of Famer. You mentioned that a name like Scherzer and strikeouts and things like that. That there's a book on Verlander, there's books on Scherzer and strikeouts. Thought it was interesting that name comes up because in the month of August he's number 1 in strikeouts. Cole Riggins is number 2 in strikeouts is Max Scherzer in the month of August. So just that's that name.
Pretty good comparison there.
is brought up. It's been so phenomenal to watch him pitch, man. It's been great. And fun, and the Royals need something like that for this team to say, you know what, they got that trade and it worked out, and boy, They whether it's fleece somebody or they have figured it out. This is very Rays-esque, right? Isn't this something we've talked about with the Rays for so long, that they see something in another player, make a trade, bring that guy in? It's like, well, how did they get that out of that guy when over here he wasn't doing anything? This is a Rays type feel to it, that if the Rays had traded for Cole Ragans and he was pitching like this, nobody would bat an eye at that.
Well, I think it's both Rays and Guardians, and there's a lot of those fingerprints with the staff here in Kansas City now. I think that's one reason that this staff's in place, is because of what they've been around and what they've been able to do in previous organizations in order to help incorporate some of those outstanding moves here. And I mean, what JJ and his staff have done with regards to signing Chapman and finding a way to trade him. He's one of the first big trades in all the trade season, and they certainly understood what they wanted. They didn't want to take any chances on not getting Ragans, and I'm sure the Rangers didn't want to take any chances on missing out on Aroldis Chapman. So it's a win-win trade.
Visiting with Jeff Montgomery, Royals Hall of Famer, Bally Sports. One last one, and then I want to talk about some of the things coming up this weekend. But Carlos Hernandez, a guy that's been put into some more higher leverage situations since the trade deadline. What are you seeing for him? And is he a guy that's just going to have to get used to some of the higher leverage things and being out there and whether that's using certain number of pitches or the way he uses pitches or relying more on the fastball or anything that you're seeing from him, that there have been some hard hits, some loud swings off Carlos Hernandez?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've noticed is here's a guy that throws a baseball 100 miles an hour. Let's talk, and you can't throw it 100 miles in the middle part of the strike zone and get people out, because they're going to adjust. They're going to hit the ball hard because they're throwing the ball hard. But he's got a slider that's a slider that should be a pitch that when he uses that slider, it should be a pitch that he's going to use as what I'll call a strike to ball pitch. It's not a pitch he throws in the strike zone. It's a pitch that appears to be his 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and it's about 10, 12 miles off, and it finishes either on the edge of the strike zone or off the plate. So it's a pitch you want to get chase on. You want to get swing and miss on. And when you're leaving that pitch in the middle part of the strike zone like he did last night, it's almost like you're doing the hitter a favor, because now you're throwing a pitch that's in less than 90 miles an hour, and it speeds up the bat. And you speed up the bat, and the ball's in the barrel part of the strike zone. Normally bad things happen, and sure enough, we've seen that a number of times with Carlos. So I think it's as much as anything, it's just learning, how to essentially control that off pitch. So it's not going to be a pitch that's going to be in the zone. It's going to be a chase pitch that he has to get hitters to chase after he throws that, upper 90s, low hundreds fastball.
Jeff Montgomery, Bally Sports Royals Hall of Famer, presented by First Federal Bank of Kansas City. What's this weekend like for current Royals Hall of Famers when it's the Hall of Fame induction weekend and Ned Yost going into the Hall of Fame, the Royals Hall of Fame, and the dinner coming up, and then the Friday night jacket and drone, and then the ceremony over the weekend? What's this like for current Hall of Famers when you welcome somebody else into the fraternity?
Well, it's a lot of fun. It's a very special weekend for the inductee, and Ned Yost will certainly be welcomed with open arms, I think, from the fans, from the players, the former players. I know a lot of his former players have intentions of coming back. And we're doing something different this year. I mean, the Royals have always given us a portrait. They put the portrait on display out in front of the pitcher's mound during the ceremony, and then that is yours to hang on the wall. And that's really what, has always been tradition for those who go into the Hall of Fame. This year they're going to do something a little different. They're going to give a powder blue sport coat, and that sport coat is similar to the one that Art Stewart wore for years and years. So we're going to have a ceremony actually on Thursday evening where all the current Hall of Famers are going to receive our powder blue jackets, and then we're going to wear them over the weekend, kind of commemorating what they are all about in the Royals Hall of Fame new tradition. And it's going to be a special weekend, and especially for Ned Yost. Here's a guy that came in and did a tremendous job at the Royals. I'll never forget that 2014 season. A lot of people were calling for Ned's job when he put Yordano Ventura in the game for James Shields, and Brandon Moss has that 3-run home run. And next thing you know, we're extra innings on wild card, and now from there on, Ned becomes a Royals Hall of Famer. So quite a story for Ned Yost, and just so happy for him. All that he meant to the Royals and all he meant to Kansas City.
Yeah, it's been an amazing ride for him, and this weekend will certainly be a special weekend for Ned Yost and those that are getting their jackets. What do you think that moment will be like for you when they slip the jacket on, the powder blue jacket? By the way, I love this this new tradition, if that's not an oxymoron, but this new way of going about welcoming former players and coaches into the Royals Hall of Fame and getting that jacket. And now we can say, is he going to be in the Royals Hall of Fame? Which is like, well, we know Salvi's going to get a powder blue jacket, right? But who else? Like, is Bobby Witt? I mean, it depends on how long he plays. I mean, a powder blue jacket for him. Like we say, NFL Hall of Fame, is he going to get a gold jacket? Now we can say it with the Royals. I love this, and I'm wondering what you think that moment will be like on Thursday when you put that thing on.
Well, it'll be a proud moment, something that I think everybody is thankful for the opportunity to have had a career, especially when you play for one team for a number of years and you put the career together, the credentials in order to earn that jacket. But it's going to mean something special when you put it on, especially I think Thursday for the first time.
Yep. Last one. How many do you think from that World Series run will be wearing a powder blue jacket when their career is over? Because Ned Yost and Salvi, certainly. Alex Gordon.
For sure, Alex Gordon. He's
Kane?
probably going to have a statue on top of that.
Yeah, so Gordon, Salvi, and Ned Yost, but like Kane, Hosmer, Moustakas, all three of those? Or maybe
I'd say all three of those guys have an outstanding chance.
Yeah, it's it'll be fascinating to see and look in 15, 20 years as to that World Series squad and how many end up as Royals Hall of Famers. Certainly winning a World Series helps get you close, and two pennants that they ended up winning. Jeff Montgomery, Royals Hall of Famer, Bally Sports. He is presented by First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Monty, I appreciate it, sir. Enjoy the game tonight. And have a blast this weekend, and it should be a lot of fun. And putting that jacket on Thursday. So thank you for the time as always, and have some fun this weekend.
Sounds great, Jason. I really appreciate you having me on your show.
Absolutely. There's Jeff Montgomery again. He's presented by First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Is your man cave ready? Complete your game day setup with a home equity line of credit from First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Get game day ready at ffbkc.com. Ned Yost, Gordon, and Salvi, for sure. Those guys are absolutely in, and we talked about the Gordon, if there's going to be a statue or something like that, there'll be one for Ned Yost. Salvi, probably a statue out there. Kane and Hosmer, both. What they did with the Royals in the time, the overall, Royals history and numbers and things like that, I would put both of them in. If we're talking about Royals Hall of Famers, not Major League Baseball Hall of Famers, but Royals Hall of Famers, I would put both of those guys in. Moustakas probably third of those three that I would put in from that World Series, that 14-15 run. But I wonder how many, not even mentioning Billy Butler. Is he a guy that finds him his way? Because he was on a pennant-winning team that played in the World Series and went to 7 games. But I'll be curious to know in 20 years looking back and saying, wow, there were 7 guys from that group that ended up being Royals Hall of Famers.
And if it is, when you're looking at National Hall of Fames and all of that stuff that is, that has a lot of gravitas to it, I understand that eventually you got to do a little bit of gatekeeping. But when you have a chance to just have a Lorenzo Cain day, not only with the team winning while he was an enormous part of it, but he was in Kansas City for 7 seasons. Yeah. So that includes 2011 where he barely played. But, you're talking about him being a cornerstone of this team, both in how they constructed that eventual World Series winning squad and was by and large the face of it. Billy Butler's an interesting one. But for years and years and years, you could say you can look back on your late 90s, early 2000s Royals teams, and you can either look back and say, oh, this team has 0 future Royals Hall of Famers on it, or you can look back and say, oh, there was that one guy. Yeah, we there was something special when Carlos Beltran was here, but his career wasn't royal. I think Lorenzo Cain's was. He ended up with 6 years in Milwaukee total and 7 years in Kansas City, and what is their plate appearance? 1,000 more plate appearances in Kansas City than in Milwaukee. That kind of surprises me. But I I'm happy to see all those guys go in because that was an incredible time of Royals baseball, and they were huge parts of it.
He's an ALCS MVP. So I think Kane is in. Like the three that I wrote down outside of Ned Yost was Gordon, Kane, Salvi. Gordon and Salvi, 100%. Kane, I think definitely in. Hosmer, Moustakas. And I'll throw another one, even outside of Billy Butler, Alcides Escobar.
I think that's where we're at. Actually,
he won a Gold Glove as a Royal, and he was ALCS MVP. He was a leadoff hitter on those teams. He played every single night. Like every night, you knew he was going to be at short. Like that's just simply what he did.
He played 140 games or more every single year with the Royals for almost a decade.
Didn't he play like every game for like 4 straight years? Was that what it was?
Here's his game totals as a Royal, okay? 158, 155, 158, 162. The Gold Glove All-Star year, 148.
Oh, wow, okay.
Then 162, 162, 140.
So that 148 mixed in there between the 162s, I guess I just sort of combined that with the other 162s. But still.
Dude needed 2 weeks off, and he was an All-Star Gold Glove player. That's what he needed. He just needed a break.
He missed 14 games in 4 years.
Unbelievable.
Over a 4-year stretch from 2014 to 2017, he was not in the lineup for 14 games. I mean, his numbers aren't overwhelming. You know, OPSing with the Royals of 636. You know, like it's not like Hall of Fame numbers, but when you sort of look at what he did as a part of that team, because what's crazy about that team is like, say something that would never happen. If the Angels were to win a World Series with Mike Trout, it'd be like Mike Trout led them to the World Series.
Right.
That Royals team was more the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
We haven't talked about any of the pitchers.
Yeah, and so when you chop it up and piece it out, it's like, well, who are the Hall of Famers on these teams? Well, you know who these Royals Hall of Famers are. But then as you start looking at it, like, yeah, but he was an awesome part of that team. But is he a Royals Hall of Famer? Well, I mean, do we have Kane and Hosmer and Moustakas and Gordon as World Series winners and AL pennant winners and another World Series appearance without Escobar? Probably not, because of what he did. And it was the Ned Yost Royal Devil Magic that you put this guy as a leadoff hitter, and what the hell is he doing as a leadoff hitter? Getting a freaking hit to lead off every game except for, Butthurt that wanted to throw it at his head. You know, Thor. Like, well, I guarantee he's not going to get on base to lead off the game against me. Why is that? So I'm going to throw at his face.
I'm going to hit him.
That's why. But he led off the World Series with the inside the park home run. I mean,
you want to get wacky with this conversation? Here's a wacky one for you.
Let's get crazy with the Cheese Whiz.
This guy played briefly a fifth seasons with the Royals. He only played 4 seasons in Kansas City. I don't think they win a World Series without him. Wade Davis.
Yeah.
What do you do with Wade Davis?
Where's he at in saves in Royals history?
An absolute. You cannot tell the story of the Royals' playoff run to World Series appearance to World Series win. I mean, you can't even really tell most of that story without Greg Holland, but you truly cannot tell that story without Wade Davis. Is he a Royals Hall of Famer? I don't know. Sure. That's my thought. My thought is, I don't know. Sure. Why not?
I mean, he would be in my Royals Hall of Fame. So,
would you give the thumbs up for Escobar also? That's where I'm in the line. I'm on the line right there. Like, one-time All-Star is sort of a tough thing, but I also don't mind. I don't mind. I think Team Hall of Fames, by and large, are a great place. Look, I don't really care when Patrick Mahomes is inducted into the Chiefs Hall of Fame, because I think Team Hall of Fames end up being an awesome place and an awesome way to honor guys who are a huge part of your organization, but either didn't have the team success to be more of a national kind of well-known person, or you just, whatever reason, your career wasn't quite long enough, your peak wasn't quite tall enough. But Team Hall of Fames are a great way to say that this guy is an unmovable part, an uneditable part of this team's history. I think that's what it's the best for. So I'd rather have, if you want to induct HDH as like as a Cerberus, just 3 heads on one body. Maybe it's 3 arms on one body. I'm not sure.
That's great.
But either way, I think it makes a ton of sense.
It's interesting. So this is where numbers versus meaning to a team. Because if you look at, Wade Davis as a closer or even as a setup man, but let's say as a closer, he has fewer saves than Mike McDougal.
A perfect
in Royals Hall of Fame. Or
perfect
in Royals history, I should say.
47 saves with the Royals, right? That's what
49 saves with the Royals. Mike McDougal had 50.
He got 2 in 2021 when he came back.
Yep.
That's hilarious. He had
Exactly
47 in his initial run with the Royals.
But he needed one more save to tie Mike McDougal. He's tied for 10th all-time in Royals saves. Not close to Quiz or leader Jeff Montgomery or even Joaquim Soria, or if we're talking about Hall of Famers for the Royals, Greg Holland, who is 4th all-time in saves for the Royals. And was a warrior that pitched and pitched and pitched until his arm blew.
Yep.
And in 2014, he was the closer. In 2015, he was going to be the closer until the arm went. And he pitched out there, and the arm went. And then Wade Davis slid in and was the closer, and Herrera and, Madsen and Hochaver and those guys, filling in the spot moving up. But Greg Holland, 159 saves in his career with the Royals, and a warrior that just said, I'm just going to go out there and just pitch, and my arm, it hurts, and it's going to go. But I'm going to be out here pitch. You know what? I can take a couple months off, and maybe I can pitch in the World Series, in the playoffs. Or I know it's going to go, and I'm just pitching. And when it goes, it goes. I mean, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Holland, man.
Absolutely.
God, there's so many guys I want in my Royals Hall of Fame on that team. Put the whole damn team in there as one. You have individual players, but then the whole team is like a picture together. All of them. Then Zobrist is in the Royals Hall of Fame.
And I think we have found
Kendrys Morales, put him in.
We have found the line of but again,
Cueto, he's
Johnny
in.
Cueto. Here's the thing: is Johnny Cueto is a very large part of Royals history in
He's
some fun
a
ways.
hero.
He is.
Fiesta.
How could you not love Johnny Cueto?
That's right.
But there's probably a line in there somewhere of what makes sense. But I'm certainly leaning on the line of put him in. Put them all in.
Put him in. Name a player. Put him, Christian Colon. Put him in.
Johnny Cueto had a 4-7 record with the Royals in 2015. Put him in.
Hochaver, put him in.
Box score watcher.
Put him in.
You weren't there.
He's in.
I love Johnny Cueto.
Yeah. Madsen, put him in.
Put him in.
Drew Butera, you damn sure put him in. With that bat against the Astros, you put him in.
Kansas City Monarchs pitcher Brandon Finnegan, put him in.
Put him in. How do they get Johnny Cueto without Brandon Finnegan? Put him in. Sean Manaea, put him in.
Yeah, I think Will Myers.
Put him in.
Put him in. I'm brave enough to say it.
Jacob Rodisi, put him in.
Look, I know it's been a rough start for Asa Lacy, but the Dominoes.
Put him in a damn game.
Put him in a game.
Put him in a game so we can see what he looks like.
Let him pitch.
It'd be great. Let him pitch. Put him on the mound. All right, we'll take a timeout. More zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Johnny Cueto, Johnny Cueto, welcome to Kansas City. Johnny Baseball, Johnny Baseball.
That's Royals Hall of Famer. He did!
I'm wiggling like Johnny Cueto mid windup right now.
Dominicano, El Rey, Dominicano. Johnny Cueto.
I will never not
He's a hero.
watch Johnny Cueto highlights.
So looking at the Royals Hall of Fame, there are 27 members of the Royals Hall of Fame.
Less than we thought, probably, right? Going into
Yep,
that?
with Ned Yost. Would you believe? Ooh, Dylan, did you hear our conversation in the break there of how many Royals Hall of Famers sort of broken up in between like eras? 27 Royals Hall of Famers. That includes managers. Denny Matthews is in the Hall of Fame.
Marco's back there also. Marco, just yell and answer.
Yeah,
just
no,
don't turn on
I
the
think
mic.
he might have been listening. He was sitting back there.
Oh, you were listening?
Yeah, he's
not listening.
Yeah, dude,
he's not here.
He is an eavesdropper if there ever was one. So he's actually keeps his phone in here. So he
just
can
to
listen
hear
to
us
everything.
bleep talking the breaks.
I'm like, you can just turn on the radio and listen. Dylan, how many Royals Hall of Famers that played or managed on the 85 World Series team?
Wait, you're
Out
saying
of 27.
how many were on that team or how many
Were on the 85 team
Okay.
that are now Royals Hall of Famers. There are only 27 total.
3? Or
So you got.
I want you to ask this question the other way around.
Okay, sorry.
Of how many of the 27 Royals Hall of Famers don't have a World Series ring with the Royals?
Oh, I see what you're saying,
Because
yeah.
we're calling it kind of the lean years
Yeah.
going through during the break.
Well, I'll just say this. 10 Royals Hall of Famers were a part of the 85 team with
There you
Dick
go.
Hauser
10.
and 9 players. 10 of the 27 Royals Hall of Famers were on the 85 team. There have been, since those players that played on the 85 team and before Ned Yost, you have Monty, Apier, and Sweeney. 3 Royals Hall of Famers since then. Now Ned Yost on the 15 World Series team.
3
So as we're talking
players.
about like the players that were on that World Series team, how many end up being Royals Hall of Famers? And we're like, is Escobar there? Moustakas, Wade Davis. And it's like, they were a World Series champion.
Yep.
Now, some of these that played on the 85 team, like Dennis Leonard, pitched for 12 years with the Royals, right? I mean, Hal McRae, 14 years with the Royals.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a different game,
there was
and guys move
Larry
differently.
Gura's, almost 10 years with the Royals. Obviously, George Brett and Frank White were on that team, and Quisenberry and Willie Wilson and guys like that were part of the Saberhagen, Gubaza, part of the Royals for a long time. Saberhagen probably the fewest seasons. He had only 7 when he was traded. Oh, damn you. But yeah, so there's longevity and winning a World Series. So maybe that separates the. But Ned Yost wasn't a manager forever.
Yeah.
He did win a World Series, but he was a manager longer than a number of these guys were on the Royals. If we're not counting Salvi, Gordon, guys like that. Kane, you said what, 7 years?
7, yeah.
So that would be Kane's in.
I think those guys become automatic that way, and I
Is
just
Hosmer just sort of the face, sort of the leader, the guy that that just puts everybody like, you know what, get on my back, let's go. I'm gonna bring everybody along.
Or
Like-
Alex Gordon, maybe.
Well, Gordon's definitely in.
Well, yeah.
Gordon is definitely in, but
you're saying does Hosmer benefit from the face aspect of that team? Right? I see what you-
does Hosmer benefit from when you think of that 14-15 team? How many people do you think of before you get to Hosmer?
Right.
Not many.
Not many. It might be Gordon, Salvi.
Might be Salvi. Salvi now because of that.
Right,
but at the
that's true.
time,
Yeah, probably
if
not.
anybody at the time in
No, you're
15
right.
said the Kansas City Royals, it might be Eric Hosmer and the Kansas City Royals.
Definitely.
At that
100%.
time. So is he a guy that then is he's definitely in. Okay, but,
They haven't
and-
inducted
and-
a player since Mike Sweeney. That's sort of where I end up here again. And also, look, if you're the Royals and you want to have a little Hall of Fame induction day every late August, early September at the K for the next few years while you're still at the K, and maybe you get some nice attendance days, whatever. Like I think it makes
You know
too
what?
much sense.
I'm gonna not even debate him. Hosmer's on the list with Salvi, Kane, and Gordon. Hosmer's absolutely in. So now the question would be like Moustakas or somebody else. Hosmer's in. He's absolutely
Mustakas
in.
and the pitching staff.
Alcides Escobar.
And Esky. That's
and,
kind of like the
Wa-
next step, right?
Wade Davis, Herrera, Holland.
I think the Cerberus idea.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to do it. You can
There you go.
give one of these new powder blue jackets you guys are talking about, but just put 6 sleeves on it.
So I think there are definite
Like General,
5.
so then General Grievous could
Yes.
wear it.
I think there are definite 5 from that team that are going to be Royals Hall of Famers. Yost, Gordon, Kane, Salvi, Hosmer. I think there are definitely 5 that'll be Hall of Famers.
Do any of them get like their? Because when you asked that question initially, I was thinking numbers out in the outfield. It's all.
Yeah, I don't know about
guys.
that. I think Ned Yost is going to get like a statue. I think Gordon has the best chance of that group to get a statue, playing his whole career in Kansas City. I'm not sure that he will, but I think there's a decent chance he will.
Statue or number? Saying just statue.
I know,
right?
yeah, just statue.
Okay.
Salvi probably gets something out there too because of how great he's been, and I think he'll be an actual Hall of Famer.
I think
he should be an actual Hall of Famer.
Cooperstown.
I went a long time,
man.
last year at some point. I went through and looked at the Hall of Fame catchers and compared him to Salvi, and he's there. He's right there. So, couple more years, some more home runs, things like that. We'll see. But yeah, I think at least 5 from that team.
Yeah,
and maybe more.
I think so too. Is there no budging on the number thing? I'm curious. It's because another level of. I think you have to be a Hall of Famer to even end up in that conversation. And even then, they just don't go that route ever.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm not sure that any of these guys are in the retired numbers category.
I think vibes-wise, Gordon and Salvi might end up having like a decent case, but it's not hanging all these numbers in the rafters and all of that. I mean, it's just a little bit of a different game that way.
I mean, when you're looking at Brett, White, Hauser.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's a tough.
Yeah,
it's a tough list to break into,
and that's kind of a precedent list. It's not like there were a couple of others that just sort of like, along the way, like Mike Sweeney was this, and saves, and this guy was there. No, it's Brett, Frank White, Dick Hauser. Those are the only ones in the history of the organization. If you're going to break into that group, you'd better be one of the best that's played for 10 to 15 years. And maybe Ned Yost joins the group by winning a World Series.
So Salvi's got the best shot.
I would say that Salvi probably has the best shot.
You can envision it, right? You could envision, and again, it wouldn't happen at Kauffman at this point, but you could envision a number reveals, the drapery over the, I guess still probably over the Hall of Fame. Again, we're talking about completely different construction now, but the idea of like Salvador Perez immortalized, the Captain C and all of that. But there are degrees to all of it. I think is what we're kind of digging down to, which is you've got Team Hall of Fame and Cooperstown and number retirement, and somewhere in there you've got a statue. And I don't know how long you go before you give out a beloved number to somebody else, but that's kind of a fun conversation. I like it.
The 11 players that have worn number 13 for the Royals. Jim Rooker, Fernando Gonzalez, Jim Gaudet, David Cone, David Howard, there you go, Jose Lind, Chico, Sal Fasano, Andres Blanco, Alberto Callaspo, Mike Aviles, and Salvador Perez. So if 13 were to become retired, I don't think he would be missing anything by nobody being able to wear 13 anymore moving forward. But still, you've got 3. And it takes a special player and longevity with the Royals to do that. The best chance of that World Series team would be Salvi.
Yep, I agree with that.
And maybe Ned because of the manager part of it.
Do you think I'm the only person in the world on the Alberto Callaspo baseball reference page right now?
Yes, I think you're the only one in the world, even Alberto Callaspo.
Just right now in this moment.
Yes.
I have to be, right?
Yes, even Alberto Callaspo would be that. All right, we'll take a break. And on the other side of the break, before we hang out with Mick Schaefer, we'll get you up to date on what's going on with the Chiefs and waiver wires and rosters and transactions. But also, I'm going to defend Ron Rivera.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm going to defend Ron Rivera.
I'm going to remember Alberto Callaspo.
Both of those are completely, appropriately, equally random. Let me do that next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
workers with a med card. Priority checkout for med patients, too. Relief Resources Dispensary in Grandview on 71 Highway at 140th Street and online at reliefmo.com.
I'm not exaggerating when I say this. QC Connecticut.
Les Norman with a great point. Says, what about Ken Harvey and Angel Baroa? I mean, locks, right?
Did they get Les's measurements for his jacket?
I hope they do.
Because you want to talk about outside looking in for no damn good reason.
He's in my Hall of Fame, I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely. He's first ballot zone Hall of Famer, first ballot just us personally, our Hall of Fames.
Person Hall of Fame? Yeah, absolutely.
He should be in a person Hall of Fame also.
Wish he was. Some news around the Chiefs as the roster cut down and everything yesterday. As of 11 o'clock, the waiver claims were put in. Those that were not claimed off waivers are then eligible to be put on practice squads. Vested veterans, if they did not sign with somebody else, they can choose a team that may want them on their practice squad or 53-man roster. The Chiefs, Reese Taylor, Austin, these are practice squad players. Reese Taylor, Austin Ryder, also expected to be on there, Bushman, Prince, P. Ryan, Cornell Powell, Dion Bush, all, according to Nate Taylor, expected to sign back with the practice squad.
I thought you were hesitating because of another one that Matt Derrick had tweeted out.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Well, I'd let you read it, but I'll do you the favor.
Yeah.
Chu Godric, also known as Jason Godric, full name. I'm not going to butcher it because I want to get the actual pronunciation decently close to being right.
Sure.
But it goes by Chu. His name on the CHU. His name on the roster has been Jason, but he's the Nigerian player who's a part of the International Pathway program. So he gets a practice squad roster exemption.
Oh, nice.
So the Chiefs will actually have a 17-man roster on the practice squad, just like they had a 91-man roster during training camp.
That's right. Oh, that's cool. So there you go. And any other thing that they also claimed Darius Rush off waivers. If you were tuning in the 10 o'clock hour, then you heard us actually talk about Darius Rush being somebody that was cut. That was a surprise that had Chiefs written all over him, but didn't think he would make it to the Chiefs in waivers, and he did. And the Chiefs placed a waiver claim on him, which means he has to be on the 53. So a corresponding move needs to be made. As of 3 o'clock, the IR designated to return moves can start being made. If the Chiefs have any of those, I think they have some candidates. I think L'Jarius Sneed, I think Kadarius Toney, I think Nick Allegretti, and I think Matt Dickerson are all players who are at least candidates for the IR designated to return. Those 4 players. I don't know if any of them will be placed on that or they will just simply release somebody to make way for Darius Rush, the 5th-round draft pick from the Colts from South Carolina, and a guy who a lot of draft boards and draft experts had him much higher in the draft than where he actually went. 6'2", 200, 4'3", 640, and 34-inch arms, has Chiefs and Spags written all over him.
And has the zone written all over him now. I mean, it's perfect.
It may or may not have mentioned him and talked about him in the first segment. Roughly an hour before he was announced as claimed off waivers. So.
Brett Veach has been texting you, I guess, the last 2 weeks and just feeding you gems. Crazy thing is, even if he was like, we love this dude, like, oh, you're probably going to get him, or, waiver claiming at 32.
Yeah.
Also, a couple names that probably aren't as well known, and one name that did become well known, Fado Kasi, the linebacker they added mid-camp, and guard Jerome Calvin, and wide receiver Nico Remigio. They all cleared waivers with their injury designations.
Oh.
So Matt Derrick tweets this out in notes that they revert to the reserve injured list with the Chiefs and will be on the IR this season unless the club reaches an injury settlement with them. So maybe there's an injury settlement that then gives them a chance to go get on an active roster somewhere else if their injury isn't actually season ending, I suppose. And Alex Leatherwood is signing with the Browns, according to Tom Pelissero. But Nico Remigio, for the hype that showed up, he'll either be on the Chiefs IR or they could work on an injury settlement.
I defend Ron Rivera.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of time that we have left here. And then Mick Schaefer will join us in the 1 o'clock hour.
Should have given you a lot of time to do this.
So the quote that came out on Monday with Albert Breer, or maybe it was yesterday, Albert Breer and the Monday Morning Quarterback or whatever, about Ron Rivera and the Sam Howell story, and saying that the quote, you can ask Stephanie, his wife, all we effing talked about was the quarterback, what the quarterback did, who he was, Rivera said sitting at his office. I kept saying F, bleep. If I would have known this, I would have played him sooner. When you only have so much time to show it, it's hard. I kept thinking, God. But after that game, everything told me this kid, give him the opportunity and see what he does with it. It was a quote about not starting Sam Howell until the last game of the season and then going, wow, if I knew he was this good, I would have started him sooner. And there are there's a lot of dunking on Ron Rivera with that quote, with that clip. Here's how I defend Ron Rivera in this. Marty Schottenheimer chose Elvis Grbac over Rich Gannon after seeing Rich Gannon play. Dick Vermeil was weeping at the podium when they lost Trent Green before Kurt Warner became an NFL Hall of Famer. And Andy Reid stuck with Alex Smith throughout Patrick Mahomes' entire rookie season. Yeah. And if Andy Reid went with Patrick Mahomes, let's say in the Tennessee game, Chiefs might have been in the division round facing off against the Patriots. Doesn't mean they would have won that game. But obviously Patrick Mahomes was the better quarterback and gave them a better chance of winning games and winning the Super Bowl than Alex Smith did. So Ron Rivera going, man, if I'd have known I had this in this player, I would have played him earlier. Yeah, there are great coaches and great coaches in Chiefs history at different times that have had players on their roster that they did not view at the time as being better than the player they were playing, and then come to find out that was the case the whole time.
I think
that's just a little defending of Ron Rivera, that I think coaches, those things happen in practice as opposed to playing a game.
I do think that's fair, that it's a difficult thing to evaluate your quarterbacks properly, and that there are lots of good examples of great coaches and offensively minded coaches. Not that Ron Rivera only knows defense.
Yeah, right.
He's been a head coach for a long time. I bet he knows how quarterbacks work. But the one
So hold on, this
thing-
guy takes the snap.
Yeah, that's the guy we want to hit and not be able to throw the ball. Well, Ron, when we're on offense, we want him to throw the ball.
We have the same guy. Okay.
We want to protect him. Every team has a quarterback. Well, most teams have a quarterback.
I'm gonna start to study this.
But the one thing that I roll my eyes a little bit. This was at the end of a 3-game losing streak after a bye. The Washington season ended with a tie, and then a bye, and then 3 losses, and then Sam Howell's start against Dallas. Right? Whatever plays into this, I mean, he had to have the decision completely taken out of his hands, and that was after they started 1-4. I don't begrudge him for not knowing Sam Howell is him, because I don't know that he is.
I don't think he is either.
But I do bemoan a little bit this, oh man, all offseason, all I did was tell my wife how bleeping mad I was at myself for not starting Tom Brady sooner.
Which is also somebody who was a backup to Drew Bledsoe. The best coach, Bill Belichick, had the GOAT quarterback backing up Drew Bledsoe.
You know which quarterback is back up?
Who?
Joe Burrow, back at practice today for the Bengals.
How about that?
Walking out to practice with helmet and shoulder pads on.
Does he have like a sleeve on his leg over the calf?
Don't have a picture, don't have that report yet.
Okay, very good.
I bet he looks pretty good.
Yeah. So there you go.
Like a little bit like Macaulay Culkin.
You think Jamar Chase is pissed?
I think he's ready to catch him footballs.
He said he wanted him to miss week 1. He's out there practicing.
Hey, it's Brian Haney, voice of the Jayhawks, and Matt Llewellyn here at the beautiful 23rd Street Brewery patio.
Hashtag vote Omar.
Put him in.
Alex Rios is a funny.
Text says Mondesi.
I think
Mondesi?
so. He's part of the team, right?
There's got to be a Royals Hall of Fame of players that were so discussed and talked about that never actually did much of anything for a local team.
I think it's a
maybe
sports
Royals
leisure
or
category.
Chiefs or
Calvin Pickering.
Yeah, I like it.
Hey, Mick.
Yes, Calvin Pickering. Hey, that's Mick Shaver. Speaking of guys discussed and never do anything, Mick Shaver, KSHP 41 sports director, joins us. Hi, Mick.
Great segue.
How'd you hit him on Monday? Did you hit him straight? Did you play well?
I played well
Good.
on Monday. Yeah,
I'm
thanks
glad
for
you did.
letting me.
We
avoid
talked well.
I just didn't have a learn funniest best, so I booked a golf tournament real quick and ran out there.
We talked well, so so we're all well, you played golf well. We talked well. I talked good.
That's good. I just worry whenever I'm on the show that if anybody's listening, if ratings will come back and you'll have hash marks the whole way through.
I always assume nobody's listening. I find it freeing at this point.
It's probably better that way.
I cut my teeth in nights, weekends, and ESPN Kansas City. Like I built that tolerance up, and so now the problem is I think nobody's listening. So it's okay if Mick and I
Practice
just
shows is
talk
what I
for
call
a-
them.
Yeah,
Practice shows.
the mental reps.
Yeah.
Mental reps. You got to get them where you can.
But I made up for it by bringing drinks.
Thank you so
Except
much.
for Jason. I don't know why he doesn't take advantage of free stuff.
Thank you so much for this
One
fountain
of
drink.
One of you takes advantage of free stuff.
Well, here's the
I
thing.
did it for both of us.
I used my allotment and I gave that to Dylan.
Yeah, you did. I didn't. I don't carry that kind of money. It's a $4 drink.
Can
I
we
didn't call my parents to wire me some cash? I went by Western Union. That's why I was almost late.
Can you unpack your side of this experience? As you did a wonderful thing. Hey guys, I'm gonna swing by QT. Who wants anything to drink? I asked for a fountain drink of my choosing. Like a regular human being. Jason was like, "No, my
I'm
body
good.
is a temple. No thanks."
Sure.
What did Dylan say?
So as I know Dylan is very particular and has sent me on a wild goose chase before finding.
This is the
I
problem.
believe
Now
it
it's
was
a pattern.
It was a goose flavored drink.
It was
And
goose
so
acai.
So as I'm a smart aleck, thinking Dylan's not going to send me on another one, I'm texting the group. Does Dylan want some sort of energy no-cal acai berry pomegranate life water? The one in the canary yellow can. And as I hit send, he sends, "Thanks, brother. Is a triple boost Starbucks cold 16-ounce thing an option?" I'm like, Jesus. So thankfully you sent me the picture. I walked right up to the first QT guy I saw. I'm like, "Do you have this?" He's like, "Yeah, fourth door down there."
Just showed him a picture.
You have
And
this.
so I went right to it,
I
but
want
then
this.
they had I'm like $3.99.
Wow.
Let's see, it was $2 a piece. $2 for me. I just
Ours
donated.
combined was like a $2.50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Quick Trip, if you get a fountain drink, they let you just put your head under the fountain for as long as you want with your mouth open. You can just chug it right there.
I've seen a lot of people come in the side door and fill up their own container
And just walk out.
and exit through the side door
No way.
at QT.
Here's the thing.
That's ridiculous. Don't do that, people.
I think about that most times I'm at Quick Trip. I think this would be the easiest way to rob a place of about $1.10 worth of product.
Yeah, because I've heard
I don't do it.
I don't think the risk reward is
nothing
really there.
is
No,
marked,
it's not. That's why I don't
nothing
do it.
is marked up more than fountain drinks.
Right.
Like if you put straw, lid, cup, and content all together, I think it's only like 10 cents.
Yeah, I think that seems
That's
about right.
about it. But they'll charge you like $1.20
I'm happy to pay it.
anymore.
I need more. I love that I know I am always within 5 minutes or so from having my choice of any fountain drink ever created.
Yeah.
That's a nice feeling. Unless you're Dylan, and then you got to get an artisanal, handcrafted cold brew.
Ran into one of
can.
those ladies though. She was at the fountain, and sometimes it's foamy, and you got to wait for it
Yes,
to calm
that's true.
down. A normal person, at least I would, when it's foamy,
You
I turn
step aside.
sideways
You
or
step aside.
I'll step aside.
Yep.
She's just blocking. She's blocking a good 7 to 8 of the fountain drinks with like her hands down there on the counter where all the soda is collected, and she's just waiting. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to get one of these things. I have to go around her and get my ice and all that stuff.
It's like the person at wherever you get your prescription medicine just shows up, puts the prescription in, and then I'll wait.
Yeah.
In line. No,
you don't have to.
drive through. You can come back. Like there are other people behind you that also would like to get there. Maybe they put them in before you, and they're just coming to just quickly pick it up. No, I'll just wait. I'll just wait right here. No, that's fine. About 15, 20 minutes. I ain't got anywhere to be. Just wait right here. I don't think the $1.15 would be worth the steal. Or the risk of getting caught stealing. Like
I've seen a lot of videos on Twitter. I'm pretty sure no one's stopping anybody stealing stuff.
That's true. Did you see the Eric Gilbert, the Nebraska football player that robbed a vape shop in Lincoln?
No.
There's video of it because it's not smart. So he just walks up and he starts throwing a rock against the door, and he eventually busts in. And then when he walks in, then he's got to kick down another door. And there's video of him, doing this. Now, after he was throwing the rock, he then took his shirt off and then wrapped it around his face so that you couldn't see his face. Even though he had already been on camera and you could see his face.
They would have forgotten by then.
So he goes in, and then he kicks down a door, and he's walking around, and he's taking his time, and then he has like 2 bags worth and just slowly walking out. And like there's 20 cops waiting for him at the front door.
Those places are.
Yes, walking out the front, and he was like, "Oh my God." What did you think was going to happen? You were shopping as if you were like, what's this one do? What is it that like you took so long? Once you start throwing the rock at the door, it's probably going to be
there's
quick
a window
in and out.
there of time.
Not only did the cops get there was enough time for 20 cops to be standing outside waiting for him to come out with $1,600 worth of stuff at the vape shop or whatever. That happened at like Monday night, overnight, like early Tuesday morning.
So he's going to miss the first quarter on Saturday then?
Depends on how good he is.
So they put an or
Dr.
next
Tom, the coach?
They put an or next to his name on the depth chart.
Nebraska tight end or
prison.
Or Eric Gilbert.
Somebody looked at all the game notes and all the depth charts for all the Big 12 teams and put a list of who has the most oars. I can't remember who it was. Maybe like Baylor had 35 oars on their depth chart or something like that.
I mean, does everyone? Well, now Nick Saban is not even releasing a depth chart. He said on Monday he's not releasing a depth chart anymore because
he's anti-fun. Anything that's fun, people like, he doesn't like.
It's a distraction to his players.
I'm sorry to bring us back
here. He's
here.
got 7 national titles.
And don't his players know, like, okay, this guy's getting 80% of the reps. I'm getting 20.
By seeing it on paper.
Probably not starting.
On paper?
On paper, though, it'll crush my soul.
That's
right. It says vape materials, lighters, and other stolen merch totaling $1,672. I'm looking at a photo
So is this like
of
a weed shop or no?
I don't think so.
Because those places, that's the last place you want to rob.
Yeah, there's security and like
there's like real cops and there's guys that aren't real cops that have guns that are like, I'm protecting this money no matter what. I don't have my own set of rules.
So I guess liquor and vape shop.
Right. So I am literally looking at like vape batteries and then a whole bunch here of those 2 for 99 cent like cigarillos or whatever.
That's a good deal. Well, especially
they're
when
not a good deal if you steal them. Yeah, that's
it's a really good deal.
You literally
they're free.
It's on the backside. It says 2 for $99 if you pay. On the backside, it's free if you steal.
Yeah, it's steal one get one free.
Yes.
This is not a good use of your bag space if you're robbing something. I mean, what are you gonna? You know what Dylan could have asked you for? He could have asked you to rob an Arizona iced tea, and then it would have been 99 cents, and you would have known where it was.
Starbucks robbed me with that price.
You know what it is?
This is bizarre.
This is just smart. He's setting up an NIL with a lawyer.
Yeah.
A law firm.
That's the first thing I thought of.
In Lincoln. In Lincoln. It would have been smart to set up an NIL with the vape shop, but that's, neither here nor there.
Or a mask company.
So those products I'm hearing are for tobacco use only. So it's actually not a weed shop.
Yes, this is
which everyone follows that rule.
Here's the thing. Everything I'm seeing in the box looks like not worth your freedom to rob.
So you're actually seeing the items that he's.
There's literally a picture of like 2 for $99, 2 for $99, 2 for 99 cents, $2.19.
You know what that looks like? That looks like the fireworks bag that when I buy the fireworks and I open it up for the kids.
Yeah.
Here we got the snakes, we got the sparklers, we got some tanks over here.
At least a box of fireworks would actually be worth $1,000.
Yeah.
We got
this
some
is
poppers.
ridiculous.
I can't stand those videos you see like robbing a Lululemon store. There's people just running, but that is a few $1,000s probably worth of stuff right there. Apple Store, right?
Yeah. And it's a quick in and out.
It's a more reward for the risk you're putting out there.
It's more of a quick in and out, not the taking your time, getting in. Taking your time to get in, by the way.
He has lighters. Like, why are you stealing? People have lighters in their pocket all the time.
Nebraska. The N stands for knowledge.
Okay.
I'm joking, Nebraska fans. You've heard that. They've heard that joke a million
I like that
times.
joke.
Yes, they probably have. The Chiefs have made some roster moves and practice squads. Danny Shelton will be on the Chiefs practice squad.
He's a guy that's been talked about a lot.
Yeah. The expectation is that LaMichael Pirine and Deneric Prince will both be on the Chiefs practice squad. Reese Taylor's on the practice squad. Austin Ryder on the practice squad. There's got to be others that I'm missing that have made the
What about
Chiefs
Shane
practice
Buechele?
squad. No
Haven't
news
seen
on
that,
Shane
actually.
Buechele yet.
Surprising.
That
A little
is-
bit, although we really put a lot of stock into that 10 for 10 against the Cardinals, didn't we? We really put a lot of stock in it.
This show
Did you
didn't.
win or lose that argument then?
I won.
Okay.
Jason won that argument. I won the argument that the whole thing was a Shane Buechele, Kevin Cobb sort of like smokescreen of like, hey, someone sent us a draft pick for this guy. So I feel like me and Jason both won.
I feel like I won. Everybody always asks me, like, Gabbert's the backup.
Yeah.
He should be
You
the
also
backup.
won.
Yeah,
he
you
should be
won.
the back. He's won games in this league. He's proven that he can. Shane hasn't. Maybe he can, but he hasn't proven it. So
He hasn't even taken a snap in the NFL. And also, Chiefs' third-string quarterbacks under Andy Reid have taken 4 total snaps in the NFL. In an NFL game, and that was only because Alex Smith sat for the Denver Broncos game in which Patrick Mahomes started in 2017, and then Patrick Mahomes sat because they wanted to put Tyler Bray in because it was a lead.
I didn't remember that.
And then-
Mahomes didn't take every snap?
And then Tyler Bray took 4 snaps, a 3-and-out, and then I believe an interception, and back-to-back scores by the Broncos that it was like, oh, wait, Mahomes has to go back in now. That's the
Bray,
those are
remember
the
Bray was the backup to like
only
for a couple weeks into the season, I think. Right?
only 4 snaps in Andy Reid's tenure. I know people are like, well, Matt Moore. I'm like, I
Well-
don't think Matt Moore is a good example that works in favor
He
of
was the
keeping
backup
3
at the
quarter-
time.
Well, yeah, because
Yes, when
Chad
he
Henne
came
went on
in.
the IR
Yes, he was
and
the
they went
backup
and
at the
got
time.
Matt Moore. But he's also not a great example to use as to why you would need a third quarterback because they got him from coaching high school football. And he was able to come in and then contribute and win some games. So I don't think you really I don't think you can use Matt Moore as an example of why you would need a third quarterback because you never know when somebody has to go in the game. Right, but do you need a third quarterback as part of your 53? When you found this guy coaching high school football and he helped you win a game?
It's recency bias, right? Everybody's thinking back to the 49ers game in the playoffs, which was a tremendous anomaly.
Yeah. I really wish the 49ers would have been one of the teams that didn't keep 3 quarterbacks.
Amazing.
Because only 13 teams kept 3 quarterbacks. With this new rule and everybody's going to take
I don't mind it.
advantage
It's
of the rule.
the 53rd guy in the roster. I'm Switzerland, do your little deal. I don't mind.
Well,
My biggest deal was like, I don't think 10 for 10 against the Cardinals
you were right about that.
somehow elevates him past Blaine Gabbert in his 12 years in the league.
Mm-hmm.
What he's done and hasn't done, right? But he hasn't been a star or anything like that, but he's proven he can win games. I don't care.
I would say that if this is a whole, like we want to make sure that we don't have this fiasco like we had with the 49ers, well, then just make a 54th roster specifically for a third quarterback. And then, so you got 53-man roster, plus your third quarterback does not count against that. So there you go. Now you can have and your third quarterback will be active on game day. That doesn't count against just a free player so that we can avoid this thing in San Francisco instead of having this whole, no, you get to now activate this guy, but he's got to be on your 53, and 19 teams were like, yeah, not worth it.
I wonder if
Don't need it.
I wonder if enough teams out there, because I mean, look, probably a third of your roster was a quarterback at some point in their lives, right? That enough of teams out there have Jerick McKinnons and Travis Kelce's to where, like, okay, if it gets to this, we can run some sort of wildcat package or short passing game package with this guy who played quarterback in high school or college. But yeah, just open up a 54th spot. And by the way, how about make the entire roster active on game days? That's the eighth wonder of the world to me. I don't understand it. Why we have to have inactive guys, and you basically only have a 2 deep out there.
Yeah.
Here's a little twist on the quarterback thing.
Okay.
I bet in the playoffs that changes. Because once you're in the playoffs, where you have a much better idea of your roster health, your literal health, the healthy scratches, all of that, if you've got a third quarterback on your practice squad for a playoff game, single game sample sizes, all of that, then I do think I'd rather have
and the
Chris
NFL doesn't want to
Olajuwon.
be embarrassed when that's the only game on and everybody's watching it and people are questioning if it's a noon game in October and it happens, whatever. It's one of 16.
I think that's a great distinction. That okay, so as your 53-man roster in the playoffs, we know this guy is not going to be active this week at this position. So we are going to activate this quarterback, and he's a free activation. We're going to put him on our 53. And he's a free player on the active roster. So we were going to make this player inactive anyway. So now we've got our third quarterback. The playoffs is that's a good point. That would be one to where you would bring somebody from the practice squad up to your team because, there's going to be plenty of play. Chiefs aren't going to have 7 active wide receivers in a game. So one of these guys that people love is going to be inactive, a healthy inactive on game day.
And instead of having a fourth running back be your inactive, again, right now they only have 3, so this won't be a problem for a while. But
exactly.
But if it's Deneric Prince or Michael Pirine or whatever, and your other 3 guys are healthy for the Super Bowl, you can figure out your little roster movement there to make sure that if something crazy happens and Mahomes is out for the first half, Blaine Gabbert gets hurt early in the second quarter, that the game is still winnable by the time one of those guys can come back at halftime. Again, single game sample sizes as opposed to a year-long commitment to a roster spot you'd rather give to a guy that might have some developmental potential.
It's funny how, like, I think we were talking about a third quarterback. I think we all assumed a fourth running back. We all assumed 4 tight ends. None of those things happened. You had probably one extra, we assumed, going to the wide receiver room, and then 10 offensive linemen.
10 offensive linemen, yeah.
And then you had probably an extra defensive lineman and or linebacker, too, that a lot of people expected.
They have an extra well, the linebacker is definitely an extra one. It's 6 linebackers. They typically only have kept 5. I was not ever lobbying for Matt Bushman. Once Fortson went down, I was more of the, 3 tight ends. Yeah. But I thought Pirine on the team because how well he played. I didn't know if he would make it through waivers or whatever.
But it's a Andy Reid team without a fullback and without a 4th tight end.
Yeah. Bell was definitely good. Without a fullback, Bell was definitely going to be there. You need that guy. But yeah, they kept 10 offensive linemen, and a lot of the guesses or the projections were 9 offensive linemen, 6 linebackers. A lot of the projections were 5 offensive linebackers or 5 linebackers. Cam Jones being a linebacker that was kept. That the only person that I read or heard that had Cam Jones on their 53 was Seren. So
there are 2 Joneses on defense, and neither one's named Chris.
Yeah, and you can't. Can you keep up with them?
2. I can't keep up with Chris. I wish I could. Wish I knew where he was.
I was listening to the program, and they were going through the 53, and he's like, "I've got Cam Jones making mine." Like, you bleeping idiot! The hell do you know about football, you dumbass? Cam Jones made the 53-man roster. Like I said,
I had to look him up. I'm like, wait, which Jones is that? I know Nick Jones in the secondary.
Yeah,
I know Chris Jones defensive line.
It's a Cam Jones? I heard Cam Jones' name when Seren said he was on his 53. But no, he's the 6th linebacker. They typically only keep 5, but they typically keep 5 safeties, and 4. They only kept 4. And I would say they typically keep 10 defensive backs, whether that be 5 and 5 cornerbacks, safeties, or 6 and 4. There's only 9 this year. Although
there's only 8 right now. Snead.
Well, Darius Rush was claimed off waivers for the Chiefs. Who, if anybody was listening in the 10 o'clock hour,
it was unlike anything I've ever seen before, Mick.
They would have heard us talk about Darius Rush being waived by the Colts, and that has the Chiefs' name written all over it.
Cooper's brother.
Right. Yeah. So I would just say listen to
Brandon's brother.
10 o'clock hour was rush hour?
Yeah, damn right it was. Damn right it was. And then 11 o'clock when we had Brad Spielberger on, then I brought up and I said, any surprise, there's Darius Rush from Indianapolis. He's like, that's one of them that come up. And I was like, that has Chiefs written all over it. Don't know if they get him off waivers. And he's like, I don't know that he'd make it to the Chiefs at number 32 on the waiver claim. And he did. And then it came out that it was like, hey, what are the odds? So they still have to make a corresponding roster move for that.
Were you surprised that neither Pirine nor Prince were snagged?
I was not surprised about Prince. Pirine is interesting, but he was on the practice squad for most of the year last year, but he had an awesome, preseason. So I think the Chiefs had a pretty good pulse on the guys they were going to be able to get through and guys that they wouldn't get through. I mean, I'm wondering if do they think Khalif Halisi was going to make it through? I mean, he was claimed by the Cleveland Browns, but they got Darius Rush.
Do you want the whole practice squad list you got right now here?
Yes, please.
So they have 16 on it? Yeah.
I do not think we're at 16 yet, but you can count with me.
Okay.
At 17, actually.
Yeah, they will have 17.
17. I'll explain.
Yeah.
Cornerback Reese Taylor, center Austin Ryder, safety Deion Bush, defensive tackle Danny Shelton, offensive tackle and international player exception Chu Godric.
Yeah.
So they had 91 players on their roster all training camp. They'll have 17 guys on their practice squad now. Jason Godric, Chu Godric, whatever. Tight end Matt Bushman, running backs Deneric Prince and LaMichael Pirine, wide receiver Cornell Powell, linebacker Cole Christensen, and then that is the list right now as those injured guys are going to the injured list. And an interesting thing that's a little bit of a surprise, Charles Goldman tweeted out a little bit ago, the Chiefs will not bring back Josh Kando to the practice squad. They're going in a different direction.
I think they've seen enough.
So I think that's right.
You got 3 years.
Did I say Darian Kennard?
No, you did not actually.
He might be taking maybe he's just taking some options right now. Seeing if anybody else.
I thought those were two guys that could make the roster too.
Yeah, I thought Kennard would make it. I was surprised.
Kennard on my projected 53-man roster. He did not make it.
He and Caliendo kind of switching spots, and then that extra tackle like we talked about earlier. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. You could say that Caliendo is impersonating what Kennard would have been as a guard. You could say that.
Could you say that?
I'm not saying that. You, Mick Schaefer, could say that.
So why do they have 17?
Because of the exemption.
International exemption.
So Godric is from Nigeria.
The practice squad?
No, because I don't know what would have happened on ACT. I think it would have had to be
Probably
off-season roster and practice squad would be my guess, where you get that exception because it's about developing international players who didn't go to American college or whatever. So that's why that works.
Well, if you get that exemption, there would be no reason to not put him on your active roster.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. He's either if he's on the active roster with an extra spot. Yeah.
Now you just get a quarterback. That's
That's why I think it's probably just
country.
An off-season and practice squad exception. I wasn't sure if it was going to translate to the practice squad or not, but Matt Derrick said it does.
You could do it like the World Baseball Classic. It's like, hold on. How is Clay Thompson's brother playing for this? Playing for England? Well, England sent, and he's got this, and his grandpa, and that. Okay, hey, Bichelle, got anybody like from Germany?
Let's do a little 23andMe.
Think Shane Bichelle. This guy is German.
Local note, doubly local. McDowell just tweeted out the Chiefs are signing Echo Boydo to the practice squad.
Yeah, welcome back,
which
Echo.
makes a ton of sense for everybody.
Cool. So there you go. There's the latest, and Chris Jones is not reporting. And with Chris Jones on the did not report exempt list, it means the Chiefs are on the hook for, right now, currently, $8.2 million is the salary cap hit for Chris Jones because they don't have to pay the $19 million. So that does not count against the cap right now. So they could go out and sign somebody if they wanted to, but as soon as he comes off the exempt list, that salary cap hits. So they would have to move some things around to figure out. But right now,
if he doesn't report until week 8 and then comes off, does it hit their cap half?
It'll hit their cap then as to what's left on the cap. Yeah. What they did not use in cap, I believe, is rolled over to 2024. But, again, right now, they could go out and sign a Carlos Dunlap. They could go out and sign a Melvin Ingram. They could do something along those lines. They would have a better idea as to when he may be in or not, or they may not. I don't know. Maybe he just shows up one day and is like, ha-ha, I'm back. All right, welcome back. We're not going to take you off the exempt list because we got some bookkeeping to do before we do that. Because even if he shows up, they can keep him on the exempt list, and it doesn't count against the cap. But the second they take him off, because he has to be off the exempt list to play, but the second they take him off, one, he's got to be on the 53, so they have to make a move there, and his cap number hits.
Is there like some sort of window after he comes back, like on IR once they're back in 3 weeks or something like that?
When he reports, I think you can keep him for 2 weeks on the exempt list after he reports. I don't think the Chiefs would do that, but certainly they could. But I doubt they would do that. I think when he reports, they'll take him off the exempt list, and even if he doesn't play against the Lions, even if he doesn't play against the Lions, he'd still get his game check. I don't think they would be punitive from that standpoint. So
I just got sad because I realized we don't have Truman Jones news either yet.
Yeah,
Truman Jones, Darian Kennard, no third quarterback news yet. No quarterback on the practice. Olakun also hasn't been on the practice squad
yet.
What
about Oladokin?
Did I do it again?
Oh, really bad, dude. There's like 3 of the syllables you got wrong.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying for an entire offseason, and then
every vowel
heard it out loud, and then I still.
I thought you got the O part right. That was it.
OL.
Okay.
All right, stop.
Let's call him CO.
Let's retractable that.
I just talk about the Chiefs.
He'll be
Chiefs quarterbacks and co.
Yes, to the practice squad.
At least one of those guys has to be just for like.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought Michelle
stuff.
and one of the running backs would be claimed. Alisi was up there as well.
Yeah, and I mean you have to be on the team's 53-man roster, and if teams are only keeping the 2 quarterbacks, I mean again only 13 teams are keeping 3 quarterbacks, so those 13 teams definitely aren't going to claim any quarterback. The Chiefs released them, so they wouldn't claim. So there's 14. So 18 teams then that would be putting a waiver claim in, but then they would have to clear space on their roster to be able to do that when I don't know how many quarterbacks they released that have been in camp with them and all of that stuff. So, yeah, the Patriots have one quarterback. They kept Mac Jones. They cut Bailey Zappi, who's now in their practice squad, but they have one quarterback on their 53-man roster right now.
And that can't be. Yeah, I just want to see what happens. I'm just curious.
By the way, were any quarterbacks claimed?
I'm on it.
I mean, everybody's got the list of the waiver claims.
I'm just scrolling for the list.
There. Yeah,
I got the list.
You got the list?
I got the list.
I got the list too.
Okay, mine hasn't loaded yet.
No quarterbacks.
Mine says no quarterbacks.
Yep, no quarterbacks were claimed. There you go.
Just kidding. Mine still hasn't actually loaded yet.
Oh, okay. Center, tight end, tackle, defensive back, linebacker, defensive back, tackle.
No running backs either, right?
Defensive back. No running back. No running back, no quarterback. So there you go.
Every team's fourth running back had a great couple of runs in the preseason, and they could just sneak him to the practice squad. They're going to have a great year.
Every single fan base is like, boy, if you can get that fourth, but will you get that fourth running back? And it's like, what's that guy's name? Jeffrey Atkinsonville Tech. Never heard of him. Oh, dude, there's no way he makes it to the practice squad. Everybody's going to want Jeffrey Atkinson Thompson on their team for sure. Deneric Prince. Fans outside of Kansas. Who's that?
It's so funny.
Who's Deneric Prince? Oh, Deneric Prince, a guy that's not going to make it to the practice squad. Are you kidding me? Deneric Prince. He's the talk of the league. Deneric Prince. You haven't heard of him?
Louis Riddick said he's going to be good.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. You don't know football then. I'm not listening to you for anything football related if you don't know Deneric Prince.
It's funny, the coaches will try to sell you the bag of goods that all these preseason games are so important. Get on the lights, see what these guys can do. I see 90% of it, they know what they have already in practice because it happens every year. Guys that make big plays, Smith Marset or a P. Ryan, or guys are like, oh, well, he just played himself onto the roster. No, they probably knew August 1st what this roster was going to be like. They want to get guys out there. And a lot of times, the part they do say that's true is that, okay, you're playing for 31 other teams as well, right? That's the audition when other teams can see you. We've seen you through 40 practices or whatever. We know what we have.
Were there 3 players that played their way onto the team from training camp to now?
Ross,
Matt Dickerson, Cam Jones, and Justin Ross.
Yeah, I would say Ross maybe not. I feel like,
but even maybe not even Justin Ross. Yeah,
he might have been already on that team.
Matt
Once
Dickerson
you said we're keeping 7 receivers, he's on.
Dickerson and Cam Jones.
Dickerson and Jones. And did they?
Because the other were draft picks.
Did Dickerson play himself
Mike Caliendo.
on?
Mike Caliendo's 3.
Caliendo, you're right. Caliendo did play his way.
But that's probably the list.
Yeah,
well,
so
and then,
3.
but was Dickerson more of circumstance with Minihue and Chris Jones?
Yeah.
I think certainly he is. He also has a turf toe, so he could be put on IR. He could be IR designated to return, and that could be a roster space freed up. But I would also question if you're going to put him on IR, designated to return. I mean, is he good enough to use one of your 8? All right, so Brett Veach will talk at 4 o'clock today. You'll hear that right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. At 3 o'clock is when the names will start coming out for the players that made the 53-man roster but are then placed on IR that can return this season. And we'll see which, if any, Chiefs may be placed on that. But Brett Veach will talk at 4 o'clock, so that would be after those moves would have been made by the Chiefs. So Darius Rush has got to be somehow a part of the 53-man roster. So somebody that is on the initial 53-man roster that came out last night is not going to be on that probably when Brett Veach is talking at 4 o'clock.
You've been on top of all the deadlines with,
Nope.
so with the IR designated return
On the
deadline
side
and
of 'em.
everything. Do you know when they have to be roster compliant? Because right now would be you don't have to, because right now they've got 54 as far as we know.
Well, they don't have to be.
The IR thing is coming. The
Right.
deadline yesterday was 3.
Yeah, they claimed him off waivers.
When does he? Maybe it's when he processes.
Yeah, the corresponding move. I don't know. It's got to be soon after the corresponding.
Definitely soon.
They don't have like a week or something because they needed to be down to 53 yesterday.
I will be interested to see. I'm guessing as the Chiefs have shown themselves to enjoy every minute of a deadline.
Yeah,
and then
you
a few
don't-
minutes after.
You also don't have to wait till 3. Actually, you know what? I got to look at the dates. 3 o'clock is either the deadline or it's the first time you can do that. So to the league,
You
like,
can start
at 3
at
o'clock.
that
You can
point.
place. So maybe at 3 o'clock somebody goes on the IR and then Darius Rush is officially a part of the Chiefs.
That would make sense.
We'll see.
But
Brett
let you
Veach will
guys
talk at
worry
4.
about that / care about it.
Let's get into
The Chiefs didn't tweet out their moves until 4 p.m. Central yesterday.
I was proud of them, actually. They've been much later than that before.
Yep.
And there were
true.
other teams that waited like till evening time.
Yeah.
So I was glad they did that.
Yes.
Helped me.
All right, so let's go through and come up with records to go on the record.
Yeah.
Nothing on the line except for reputation, credibility.
And the loser loses a finger.
That's right.
I was going to say, I don't care about those first two things. I want my
I'm
fingers, though.
still waiting for something on the line.
Okay, what's on the
there.
line here? Is there lunch?
You
Or...
get a Rooster Booster drink.
Yeah, hell yeah,
So
baby.
I'm not paying that much money.
Dylan, you got good second half of the show energy, last quarter of the show energy from this
freaking better
$6
Yeah,
mixed
man.
drink that Mick made for you.
Yep.
Do you? What flavor was that? Is that that's all they had was like French? Was it French vanilla? Right?
Yeah, it's not my first choice.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
No, it's delicious, Mick. Thank you so much.
I didn't know Starbucks sells stuff in other stores. Look at that.
All right, let's go through. We'll start with K-State. I've got them at 9-3. I've got K-State at 9-3. I'll take the over on the 8.5 in Vegas. I've got them 6-3 in conference and 3-0 in non-conference against Southeast Missouri on Saturday. Then Troy, then in Columbia against Missouri. Have them winning that one. So 9-3 for Kansas State and a couple of 3 swing games there. Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Texas.
You have the losses?
Those are my losses. Those are all road games. Oklahoma State's the one that I went back and forth on just because it's coming off a bye. But it's sort of a weird spot.
I can keep you at back or fourth, whatever you're going to be.
Yeah.
Keep you at win for K-State.
Yeah. That was the one I went back and forth. I'm like, I'm going to put it as a loss, but I'm not confident about it. We'll see. But anyway, I got 9-3, 6-3, which easily could go up to 10 if these other wins certainly happen, but could go up to 10 if they find a way to beat either Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, or Texas on the road. I think they'll face off Texas twice this year in the Big 12 championship as well. Josh, Kansas State.
We all wrote these down and everything ahead of time, right? Like we've all bound by that.
I'm bound by what I have.
At K-State going 9-3.
Oh my!
9-3 for Josh. You idiot.
Yeah. It's just I like being able to feel good about the over, and then you've got yourself some of those toss-up games that could go either way. 9-3 feels all right to me, so that's where I'm at, and I wonder who's going to break that mold.
Mick, you 9-3?
I started at 11-1
Whoa!
for Kansas State. Hold on, I didn't write it down yet though. You bring back your entire offensive line and your quarterback, and you have 2 very good running backs and a defense that just churns over guys year after year. I think they're going to be really good. Now, I have a rule in life. It's called the +1 -1 rule.
Okay.
If things are too much, I'll take it down a notch. Not enough, up a notch. So I'm going to go 10-2.
10-2, okay.
Because I think the only loss I had was at Texas Although, I mean, I'm not buying any Texas BS, their back crap, like I never do. So if they win that game, that won't surprise me. But I'm like you, if they could drop, I think they could drop one at Texas Tech or Oklahoma State. You always have that one week where you don't bring it and the other team does, TCU at home or whatever.
They could lose at KU. They could lose.
I don't
in
think
Columbia.
they will come close to losing at KU.
Interesting.
When was the last time they came close to losing to their rival?
I think there's
When was the last time
2007?
Kansas was back?
I remember that Jordy Nelson, Aqib Talib matchup, I believe, in Manhattan. Yeah, that was about it. So I'll do the -1. So I'll say 10-2 for Kansas State and a trip to Dallas.
Dylan,
we're not predicting that, right? We're not.
No, we're
okay.
not. Yeah, just the regular season. Just the regular season.
I'm gonna go 10-2, right in the middle.
10-2.
What Mick said and you guys said.
All right, 10-2.
Well, for the record, you wrote 10-2 down.
I
for
did
me,
write
right?
10-2, but from your initial instinct to where we were
I
with
don't know.
our,
I might just throw it all on the table here and say 11-1.
just put it on the
Oh,
table.
you
I
gonna
don't
put it on
care.
the table? Put it on the table, Mick. Put it for
I'm
the
gonna
video
put-
watchers.
I'm going to put parentheses initially.
Can I do 10.5 and
I was thinking I'd go
11-1.
I kind of wanted 9.5 to 2.5. So
I put it in light ink 11-1, but
we'll see where I'm at on these other two teams, and I might.
Okay.
weirdly he
just
does
go for
he
it.
does have KU winning that KU K State game, but actually they're both winning
we
it.
just have pride on the line. 11-1. I'm
Yeah!
11-1. Screw it.
15-0.
Could they do? They could do 15.
15-0. You're damn right. Josh, we start with you. KU. Where are you at with the Jayhawks who start their season on Friday night?
I am not here to predict a fall back to a past lost reality. I actually fully believe in what KU's building. I've got 7-5. That's a narrow hit on the over. That's been sitting around 6.5 most places. But I think they could go 7-5. Still, absolutely call this a successful season and have a lot of fun football out of Lawrence.
DraftKings has it at 6 now.
Do they really?
Yeah. So,
Huh. All right, I'm gonna poke around
there at 6. So I mean, you can still. I mean, 6 better than 6.5 because you can at least get your money back if they. End
Yeah,
up
no,
with,
I like that,
6
actually.
And go with the. But I don't know. Anyway,
Do me a favor.
Mick, what are you thinking? We'll go to you.
I'm going to go 5-7 for Kansas. I have them going 2-1 in the non-con, and then that would be 3 wins in the con. I don't have them beating BYU at home or at Texas. I have them beating UCF at home. I don't have them winning at Oklahoma State or beating OU at home. And I have them either winning at Iowa State or Texas Tech at home to get that third conference win. Or no, maybe it was the one out of those 3, those 2, and plus the Cincinnati game on the road.
Yep,
maybe
last one of the
Yep.
season there
Yep.
for KU. Could be.
Although I kind of have the sneaking suspicion that might be the game to get bowl eligible.
If they're 5-6 at that point, Cincinnati is not anything to write home to mom about, and their coach is generic as hell. So, their new coach, Dylan, what do you say for KU?
I'm gonna go 7-5 as well,
7-5.
and I have them losing.
Mickey is the outlier.
to both Oklahoma schools and Texas, KSU, and Iowa State on the road.
I have also gone 7-5 for the Kansas Jayhawks. When I put pen to paper yesterday, I had them 6-6. I was like, just Mizzou 6-6, KU 6-6, K-State 9-3, 21 wins. Like I said on Sunday Sound Off.
Mizzou 6-6.
Well, I put pen to paper for
don't know.
KU,
That was, see, his work changed.
7-5 with the losses being Texas, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Iowa State, and Kansas State. But I think Iowa State, Oklahoma State, OU, Kansas State, with those losses, you win 1 or 2 of those. Now all of a sudden you're talking about 8 wins. If you win some of the others that are there that are already written down as W's there.
Man, what kind of Starbucks drink are you drinking?
It's actually just a Gatorade. You didn't start it. You didn't say you were going to Starbucks. Had you said you were going to Starbucks, I would have got something with a little caffeine. I'm feeling a little down right now.
When you go to QT, you're going everywhere.
I need a little boost right now. I'm feeling a little bit down right now. So I've got them at 7-5 right now. 4-5 really in the conference. So if only I could have a little bit of caffeine right now. I should have gone to Starbucks for me.
So they're going to win at Nevada and Illinois at home, you think?
They're going to beat Illinois. They're going to beat Nevada. They're going to beat BYU. They're going to start off 4-0.
Wow.
Yeah. I think Nevada and BYU have a lot to be desired, and Illinois is at home. So BYU's at home too.
I didn't have the energy to look up those teams, so I just.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah,
It's all good. All right, we will start with you, Mick. Mizzou.
I didn't need to look at their schedule, so I went 6-6. It's
so
what
great.
happens every year. No, I did. They're going to beat South Dakota and Middle Tennessee. I actually have them beating K-State in this scenario, but K-State winning K-State scenario. No,
smart.
I have them losing to K-State.
Smart.
I have them beating Memphis. I have them beating Vanderbilt, but then losing to LSU, losing to Kentucky because that happens a lot.
Because they do.
And beating South Carolina
that's what they
at
do.
home. And then one basically out of Florida at home or at Arkansas.
Yep, that makes total sense. Dylan, Mizzou. Go ahead, just say 4-6
6-6 as well.
6-6. I thought you were gonna just say 4-8. You want to say 4-8 so bad, Dylan?
I did.
6-6.
I did. As a KU fan, I did. But I do think 6-6. Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, KSU are the losses.
Okay. Oh, I thought Kentucky.
I thought you were saying wins. Yeah.
Georgia and Kentucky.
I would take that 6-6.
I'll take that 6-6.
no
Absolutely.
Would you though? I mean, like you lose to Middle Tennessee, South Dakota, but you beat Georgia and LSU.
I mean, Middle Tennessee. It's like they're over/under. It's like 7.5.
Look, we handled Tennessee, but the middle part,
yeah,
we had to play them. They are really, it's really specific. It's
we
tough.
started and ended with Tennessee, but the middle we just didn't show up for. I have Mizzou at 6-6 this year. I've got them with 5 wins that I feel pretty good about: South Dakota, Middle Tennessee State, Memphis, Vandy, and South Carolina, because they just simply beat South Carolina. So those 5 wins, which means that. Then I've also got a number of them that are already losses, like K-State. Let's just say out of Kansas State, LSU, Florida, Arkansas, and Kentucky, if they win one of those, they get to 6. If they can find a way to go 2 and 3, all of a sudden now they're a 7-win.
It's funny. It's
team.
kind of a black and white schedule, right? I was pretty sure on all of them, except the Arkansas and Florida were kind of up in the air, and the others like,
strong.
it's a loss, that's a win.
Yep, I feel pretty strong about 5 wins, and then 1 loss with Georgia. I feel pretty strong about that one, and then you've got 5 games.
I do wonder. I mean, you get Tennessee and no, you're right, Tennessee. No, you have Tennessee and LSU at home, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
I could see them, puffing the chests out and getting one of those.
Well, I mean, they could.
But then how it usually works is you drop one to South Carolina.
Yeah, if they were to find a way to beat Kansas State at home, I mean, they could be 5-0 getting ready to play LSU in that game at home. Josh, 6-6. Go ahead and write that down for you.
Do it.
Put me down for 7-5, Jason.
What?
Put me down for 7-5.
What's the 7th win then?
K-State.
Don't know. Haven't found it.
That wasn't part of the game.
Do not enjoy it. Listen, you guys read all those lists, and that's a list of games where I bet you're right, Jason. If they could win one of those, it'd be a nice year.
Come up with 2 numbers that equal 12. That was the game. That's it.
See, this is
your rule is at +1 -1. I'm doing that from a how do I want to feel about these choices, and I think 6-6 is the correct answer, but I'm adding one for good vibes.
So you're missing the Missouri part of this.
No, I know.
I think they can win 7 games, but Missouri will end up 1 fewer than they should.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why I have them at
-1.
6-6.
Yes.
It's the -1 for Mizzou. It's
think
typically with Chris Kleiman. I mean, it's a +1 almost.
It
Damn it.
is. I don't.
Lance Leipold is a +4.
Let me just say really clearly, this is not financial advice.
Okay.
I like KU and K-State overs. I'm happy with 9-3 and 7-5.
So I'm
for
at
K-State,
22
KU,
wins, right? And I think we're all kind of right there,
I'm
right?
at 22.
Because the 2 I gave K-State, I gave back with KU.
I've got Mid-American Nazarene going 9-2
Are you
and winning the
serious about
South.
that?
No,
I've got them winning the South. They actually want to
I
know
was going
right
to look
now.
I forgot. I was going to have some
I actually was going to look at it, but I
info.
totally forgot to.
Yeah.
I texted the
Overtime
group.
win last weekend.
Yeah. We talked and we said, hey, we're going to give our predictions for K-State, KU, Mizzou, and Mid-American Nazarene.
Damn right.
And I forgot to look up the Mid-American Nazarene.
9-2 and winning the Heart South. That's my prediction.
Go Pioneers.
I've got them 8-3.
Whoa!
But there's a couple of swing games that could get them to 10.
If they can beat K-State, I mean, that would change some things.
They could be 5-0 getting ready for LSU.
That would be something.
I'm just saying. And you go to Texas. I mean, they've gone to Texas and won before.
Absolutely.
Hold on. Are we talking about Kansas now?
I'm not sure. It doesn't matter.
Gone cross-eyed. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, see if any more moves by the Chiefs have been made next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, welcome back here in the zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. That was for the video only.
I'm going to be pulling out those moves at Pearl Jam on Saturday, okay?
You're Pearl Jamming it up. Is Jeremy going to be there?
I hope so. I hope they play a lot more of the older stuff. I don't know the most recent album as well. I've been listening to it, though. Gigaton is a couple years ago.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so
but yeah, play those first 3 albums. Give me, Versus, Vitalogy, and 10. Knock out every single word of those.
You know what? When you were a band that's been around as long as they have and had so much success, and you're touring, you got to go with a lot of the classics, man.
So my buddy I'm going with has been to like 20+ shows. He says he's never gone to a show they didn't play alive, which was obviously one of their first hits, if not their first hit. And so that's cool. So I've been looking at playlists, and it's a good mixture of every era.
Nice.
Their second era of kind of like No Code and Yield, and those albums was good, and I know those songs. So.
Where's it? Where's the concert?
St. Paul, Minnesota.
Oh, so right around the corner.
Just a little jaunt.
You driving there? You gonna Uber?
I have a one-way ticket there for $84 at 6 a.m. Saturday morning.
Does KSHB know that you got a one-way ticket to Minnesota?
Well, I'm meeting my buddies there. They're going up Thursday. They're driving up because they're playing Thursday as well.
Oh, nice.
My son's first football game's Friday. He's not going to miss that. So early flight Saturday, driving back with those guys on Sunday.
There you go.
That's a pretty good setup, actually. That's pretty sweet.
It's not bad
How
at all.
about a free ticket and free hotel room?
Yeah.
That'll do.
I'll buy a round of drinks, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't have to drive up there. You only get one drive.
One drive, and
I'm
sitting.
They got to drive there and back in 4 days. That's no bueno.
No, it's a good. I've never seen them. It's my favorite band of all time. So looking forward to it.
That's really exciting.
And on Friday we'll talk about outfits because I don't know what to wear.
I have several concert-based questions. I'm going to save for you until Friday.
I mean, knowing what to wear is half the battle. Just such a important decision. Oh.
I don't want to spoil Friday's
and there's
conversation.
rules for concerts, right? Especially for the 90s grunge era bands. And you want to wear some...
No top hats.
I don't know how tacky it is to wear the band t-shirt. You want to wear some similar ones. Nirvana t-shirts can be all over the place, whatever. I feel like that's too too mainstream.
I don't think there's anything wrong with wearing like the band's T-shirt because people go to Chiefs games and wear Chiefs stuff.
That's a different set of.
It's different. It's a different set of rules.
It's a different set of rules.
Different rules, absolutely.
As long as it's leather and your nipples are exposed, I think you'll be fine.
Well,
Mick.
that's taken care of.
Whips, chains, whistles, yo-yos. Grandmother riding by on a.
Yeah, you know my speed.
Fast, hard.
Thank you, Mick. Appreciate it.
One way speed.
One way
speed.
And speed limit on the way back.
We'll do,
please. Brett Veach at 4.
Let's go, Royals, to North Kansas City. Clay County is on the move. We're